We welcome you to the Provo Municipal Council work meeting. It is March 24th, 2026, and it's 1:01 p.m. We will do a roll call, starting with Councilor Rachel Whipple. Rachel Whipple. Becky Bogdan. Catrice McKay.
Grady Christensen. Jeff Whitlock. Gary Garrett.
All right. Although it's a public meeting, only the presenters and those invited by the council may ask or speak. Speak or ask questions, unless otherwise invited by the chair. Please wait to speak until called upon by the council chair. When speaking, please be sure to use a microphone so that the record is clear and those attending virtually can hear you. Please also be sure to limit side conversations as they interfere with the audio recording. If you need to have a side conversation, please step out of the work meeting room. It is proposed that we approve the following minutes. March 10th, 2026 work meeting. Are there any objections or requested changes?
Just one change. I have a brother named Greg, so I'm very used to this, but it said Greg Garrett on the attendance. Yeah. It was actually me, not my
Is he a twin? Is he a twin?
No.
Seeing no, okay, we'll make those changes. Great.
Fix your name.
Thank you.
And we'll declare that the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. All right, our first item of business is a presentation regarding the proposed redevelopment of the Provo Towne Centre site into a mixed-use, transit-oriented district. And this will be presented by Robert Schmidt, Development Director of Paid Companies, and Justin Long, Project Executive for Brixton. And we have about 60 minutes for this discussion. You go right to the front there. And if you have extra people who want to stay back here and talk for a bit, please.
Who's Sandy to with the slides? I have two sets of slides here, so let me know if this is the one you want to use. If not, I have another one.
And you should have a clicker.
Yeah, I think pull the other one up just real quick. Okay, let me pull this other one up. You can use that clicker up there and that will control the slides. The other one was. We only got these two sets of slides. Yes, that's the one. This is the one, okay, go.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Robert Schmidt, Managing Director of Development at Paid Companies here in Provo. We're a Provo company, been here in Provo for 15 years, but we were actually founded. My first office building was in the Night Block building on the 3rd floor, so we've been here a while. Done several projects in town. You may be familiar with those. And we're happy to be here to talk about the Provo Towne Centre Mall project. We're partnered with Brixton Capital. Justin Long is here today with me, and he'll be going through much of the presentation. Really what we want to talk about here today are the process that we're in and the next steps that need to be taken to continue advancing this project to bring it to a successful start and eventually a successful completion. We've made application to the city for a rezone, which involves a text amendment to the ITOD zone to amend the general plan and to rezone the north end of the mall to an ITOD zone. And we'll get into some specifics about that. And attached to the rezone request is a conceptual site plan. So today, I think we'll start with Justin. He'll walk through the conceptual site plan. We'll kind of start at the site plan first, and then we'll come back to some of the specifics on the rezone request. In addition to the rezone, we also have an HTRZ request in process with the city. The HTRZ is the Housing Transit Reinvestment Zone. It's a TIF tool, basically a tax increment financing tool, to help projects get over the hump of big projects that require major infrastructure, to help them get over the hump to make them feasible. So we'll talk about that a bit as well. We've got Ben with the A. Davidson last name. Sorry, Ben. Wilhelm. Sorry, I want to say Ben Long. Ben Wilhelm with the A. Davidson here with us as well, and he can talk through some of the HTRZ specifics as we get into that. We also have Kyle Godat with Brixton Capital and Tyler Phelps with PEG. So, Justin.
Thanks very much. We're pleased to be in front of you and presenting, this concept. And I think Robert introduced PEG, and they've been a fantastic partner. We're thrilled to have them on the project. They do extremely high quality development on the multifamily side, and we see that as obviously a good, crucial component of the overall site plan here. making this successful, and we're thrilled. They've been excellent partners for this, and we know they'll continue to be adding value through the process. So as I'm sure most of you know, here's our mall here. It's not been as successful, I think, from a footfall standpoint as we'd like it to be in a number of years, and we see that it needs to be reinvented. This is not unique to Provo Towne Centre is kind of where I want to start. This is a secular shift that's happening across the country. Indoor malls are having challenges kind of no matter where they are, and the vast majority of those will need to become something else in the future. I saw an estimate the other day as high as 80% of current indoor malls will no longer be malls in 15 plus years. So this is happening all around the world, around the country. And the results of that have kind of been the tail of the tape here. On the left is the annual sales tax receipts prior to today. And on the right in red, you can see kind of where we see things going without sort of reimagining what the future of the campus really needs to be. I mean, it's not a good asset currently for the community from a placemaking standpoint, a business standpoint, or really from a revenue generation standpoint. So we'd like to bring this into the 21st century. A lot of you, Kyle and I live this every day, so we have to deal with these challenges on a daily basis. But for those that aren't really familiar with what the challenges associated with malls are and why they're extremely hard to redevelop, and this is just sort of a high level categorization of the things that create problems as we try to engage with core partners and stakeholders and reimagining these kinds of assets. Reciprocal easement agreements are agreements that govern how these assets work. So things like parking and access and who can go where and who can build what where. Those have to have extremely detailed negotiations. In this case, it went on for many years on how to unlock the potential, because the partners that are part of that agreement are often the key partners that are on the site. People like JCPenney's, Cinemark, now Target, all those kind of major players that are retailers have their own business needs that they're obviously concentrating on. They want to make sure those aren't negatively affected by whatever's going to happen going forward. So that's a major component. That ties in with the anchor tenant rights, just depending on whether they lease or actually own the ground. But those are the same kinds of conversations. The fact that there's typically multiple ownership groups. So when Brixton Capital acquired the property, as some of you may or may not know, Dillard's actually used to own their building and the land around their building over time. And with the Target project, we were able to acquire their interest, which streamlined that approval process with them. But often that's a major hurdle, and it was in this case until we took that off the table with that acquisition. Cross parking, cross access easements, and then the final one, and not one that's insignificant, is there's existing businesses that are operating today, whether it's Red Robin or some of the temporary tenants. Those are all obviously people that need to be talked to and figured out how to transition them to an alternative location, and in some cases relocate them into the project in its new configuration. So those are all challenges that we have to work through. This is a graphic that I think helps illustrate for Provo Towne Centre how these challenges manifest themselves. So all of the boxes in red are the key anchor tenants that have to approve any of the components of any changes in development. So you've got, so like I said, Cinemark, JCPenney's, and Target. And then in purple here, each one of those parking lots has major controls that are dictated by either one or all, in some cases, of those anchor tenants. So again, some of the challenges we have to work through as we try to create a new vision for what we believe the project should be going forward. So just to hit real quick, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but as I mentioned, we were able to acquire the Dillard's interest. We were able to bring Target into the project, which was a massive validation of the quality of the real estate and a first domino for us to fall. And we think there's a lot of momentum there that we'd like to ride into the next phase of the project. And we see that as before and after. On the right, you can see that it's an entirely enclosed indoor mall, shifting to an exterior oriented mixed use walkable environment is the vision. So I'd like to just play our video. Yeah, thank you.
PDF, so.
Okay.
We have got it.
I was wondering what this video was.
It's actually really cool.
So let the video play. It's not it's not perfect. It was done a little while ago for some details, changed in the plans, but it overall gives you a really good sense of what the walkable mixed use, higher density vision for the project is intended to be. If you're able to kill this, now you can kill it. Doesn't get any better.
No, wait, I'm gonna
So the intent here is to bring the vehicles and the customers into the center of the new plaza and create a lot of energy as the nexus there around which everything can pivot. On the left, or in front of us, I should say, is the reconfigured mall. It's important to know that the buildings that you see right here are actually part of the mall. So we're taking the existing mall structure and we're turning it inside out. So we are not just tearing something down and building something new. We're doing our best to try to use the existing infrastructure as best we can to facilitate this new vision. And it's really centered around amenity-rich plaza area. We want to bring vehicles in and through and allow for convenient access and parking. We've got bicycle lanes that are designed in here that we'll see and highlight a little bit later. We've narrowed the scope of the retail, the small shop retail. As you can see here, everything on the lower level is intended to be that retail.
What do you mean, just smaller stores as opposed to big anchor stores?
Yeah, we've reduced the amount of small shop retail square footage. So today, and we'll get to this in a minute, we have, there's a tremendous amount of small shop retail interior facing space. And the scale, which is just unsustainable in today's world, right? From a leasability and maintenance standpoint. So we've reduced that to what we believe is productive, leasable, long-term sustainable space. It's all centered around an environment that people are actually going to want to spend time. So you can pause it right there just for a second. That's okay. That's okay. I got a slide.
Sure.
So just jumping into the site plan, because you can't see all the little details, it's just through one fly through, but am I able to point with this thing? Okay.
You touch right on the screen, yeah.
Touch.
Well, yeah, you can paint on the screen with your finger.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So this, if you remember, this is a 2-level mall. So we're looking at the lower level plan right now. So the food court entrance would be somewhere around here today, just to orient you. There you go. So all the acres are planned to stay in place. We demolish what's currently the Sears, or the old Sears box, goes away to make way for part of the multifamily as well as the new road configuration coming in and through. Create this amenity plaza, which we'll get to some of the details of in a minute, surrounded by smaller shop oriented retail. In the bulk of what's now the interior mall on the lower level, if you'll recall, Cinemark today has parking underneath it, so it's covered parking. The intent is that you would extend that covered parking into what's today part of the interior mall to just provide more convenient covered parking. It's proximate both to JCPenney's, Cinemark, as well as this plaza. It's become like really nice, high quality parking for people. It'll get used multiple times a day. And then we also have a retailer front entrance here, as well as on the lower level of Target.
So you'd be hoping to have another big box retailer there? Is that what that's for?
Yes. Yes, so
The entrance to the interior parking is through the existing Cinemark parking.
that's correct. So you would be driving into that existing parking and you would continue down here. You won't even realize it's separate.
Okay, but the only way to get into it is from the north.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. So
From the west.
From the
Oh,
west.
the west.
the west,
Sorry.
yes, correct.
Yes.
But yes, the idea would be a retailer here, the lower level of Targets right here where their back of house is. And then there's 2 more opportunities, again, facing this way is the entrance for multiple, we'll call box retailers.
Oh, there is?
Yes.
I thought you had like warehouse stuff there.
So only about a third of this lower level of what used to be Dillard's is taken up by Target's logistics.
Okay.
There's another 70-ish thousand square feet that there's opportunity for more retail.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Now, have you been talking to anyone? Like, are there any names on the table?
We certainly have, but I'll tell you from personal experience in those conversations, the first question they ask is, what's happening with the rest of the mall? Because they're not willing to go into their committee and stand in front of their executives and say, yeah, we should really go here. But yeah, we know we're next to a dead mall and there's no real plan for it. So we've had a lot of interest, and we think we've shown this, quietly to some folks and said, hey, is this interesting to you? And every one of them says, yeah, this is great. It's exactly the type of thing we want to sign up for, but let us know when you're ready to go. So moving to the second level, this is the entrance to the target, just to orient you again on which level we're on. So second level target entrance is here. This is shown as just basically commercial space. So the lighter blue can really be a mix of a variety of commercial uses. We've talked about some retail. We talked about some like higher density office. We've talked about medical office. There's a variety of different commercial level uses that we're exploring here. And you can see the aqua color is more of the, I would call it co-working or smaller density office suites on the second level, just because in most places, second level retail struggles pretty significantly. So doing a more sustainable use on that second level is the vision we see. Another thing to point out here is, so the entrance that you walk in today on the second level, on that upper level parking, you walk in the second level mall entrance here and you walk into the front of Cinemark there. That same path of travel will basically still be intact. This parking will allow for an entrance right through there. I don't know if I can clear it. Can I clear that?
I can clear it for you.
Thank you. So you see a little hallway there, for lack of a better term. It's really an entrance. And we're going to reconfigure where the lobby actually is. It'll be pulled in a little bit. You'll essentially, if you're a customer for Cinemark, you'll take the same path of travel that you have been.
But it's really the the second level you're coming in at though, right? Because
That's right. So if you
below.
park here, this is the second level. Yeah.
Right.
It's upper.
Right.
If you come in and park underneath Cinemark, you just go up these escalators. There's right there and be at their front entrance.
So the escalators are staying.
There will be escalators. There won't be the same ones, but yes, there will be escalators. Yes.
They'll be positioned. So that darker blue section there, you said it's gonna be like co-shared office space on the
Yeah,
second.
co-working, smaller office. Yes,
And that's the second level.
that's correct.
So when I walk in to go see a movie, I also see that co-working share space as well, right? It's in the hallway.
If you keep walking, there's an exterior pathway here. So if you kept walking past the entrance,
Oh,
you could.
but there's gonna be like no indoor connection is what you're saying. The Cinemark entrance is gonna be the Cinemark entrance.
That's correct.
And then the co-working entrance is gonna be a co-working entrance. Then you're gonna have a walking path also for the light blue. On that northern side.
So right here, we'll get into the detailed plan, but right here, that's where the elevator and the stair core is to get from this level here up. So if you were parking, let's say in that covered parking area, you could walk right there, get in the elevator.
Remind me again what that orange is underneath the dark blue.
Sorry,
Remind me again what the orange is on the first level.
reset.
Okay, so you
The
got
small
retail,
box retail.
smaller box retail that will have an elevator and escalator that goes up to the second floor for the co-working space.
So this is all exterior facing around the plaza. There's a small lobby here that provides covered essentially access between the plaza, the entrance to JCPenney's, and this extended covered parking area. So all that feeds into this lobby, and in that lobby is where that elevator would be.
So on the second, back to the second level. So that blue is all external facing. Second level.
Yes. Yeah, it's a little hard to see. We can run the video back and you'll see that there's a covered walkway just
Yeah,
in
I
front of
did see
that.
that. That was nice. So
Yeah.
it is covered
That's correct.
on the walkway.
So any of those entrances would just open up to that covered walkway area.
And how many levels are there altogether?
2,
There's just 2 levels, period.
correct.
These will keep both
Well,
levels.
on the commercial side, the residential is 5, right?
Oh yeah, we're just talking about the mall.
Yeah, just on the commercial side, yeah,
Pennies will still have the 2 levels.
that's correct. Yeah, so other than, to answer that question, JCPenney's basically, nothing changes about their store itself. We'll make sure to reorient exactly how this
Okay, including
lobby interact.
all the stores, restaurants, entertainment, how many businesses were you gonna add?
That's a tough question to answer.
You don't have a number
Well,
because it depends on the size and what.
it depends on the
is.
size, right? You could have one really.
So you have
much
square
larger.
footage.
Yeah, well, I'll go to, this will answer that question better. So here is the square footage today, almost 1 million square feet. That includes Sears, it includes all the interior malls that are really non-productive space, right? But at the end, so the anchors are gonna stay. We're adding, this is that 110,000 square feet you're asking before about box retail. 42,000 square feet of retail, another 100,000 square feet of commercial space, and then about 20,000 in that co-working. So at the end of the day, we're reducing the overall square footage by about 300,000, but we're massively increasing the productivity of everything that's left, right? So we're getting rid of all that interior mall space. It's been very difficult to fill, and it's just too much for the ecosystem of retail that exists today. Same with Sears, and we're converting it to something that is mixed use, walkable, and very productive from a retail standpoint and a commercial use standpoint.
So your existing anchors, you're decreasing a ton. Considering the Cinemark was 781.
That's a typo.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's 81.
okay. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, so the existing anchors, basically the only thing going away from an anchor square footage standpoint is Sears, which no longer is operating anyway. So
And where you've got Dillard's, is that actually Target now?
that's, well, yeah, that represents both levels of Dillard. I'm sorry, both levels of Dillard's, but 130,000 of that is already backfilled with Target. Any other quick questions before I move on? So one thing I want to highlight, and this came up a couple different times through various conversations, was it's hard to kind of imagine scale of what we're talking about here from a plaza standpoint. So we wanted to show that this is 1.7 acres of total space. So in a scenario where we have this flexible community space that you could shut down from time to time, do farmers markets or any sort of events, similar to what the mall does today. This is a very substantial space. It's actually significantly bigger than the lawn space that's on the north side of Orem, of University Mall. And so we just want to kind of show that what we're talking about here is not just some kind of throwaway. It's a plaza that sits in the middle of this, but it's not really a dynamic space for people to congregate in. This is a really substantive space here that can be used for these kind of events, but also when they're not. Oh, here you go. So 95,000 versus 70,000 is the
And
direct.
that's backwards, right? That picture?
Which one?
Oh, no, that one's right. You had a before and after picture in your slides that were wrong or backwards.
Oh.
But, sorry, go ahead.
So again, about 1.7 on the left, and then it's, what is that, an acre and third or fourth on the right. And
Councilor Whipple
Yeah.
has a question.
oh, sure.
So I like that it's a larger space, but it's just really confusing to me that your main road of path goes right through that. So if you are doing events, people, like you're closing off that roundabout, but that's the main way to get up to the north where your parking is and everything else.
To west.
Like what, or sorry, west. Oh my gosh, thank you, Becky. But
We don't have that road in town center.
it's just, it's hard for me to make sense of having the roundabout as like the core of the plaza. Is it because you feel like you need to have cars driving by there most of the rest of the time to drive traffic, or?
Yeah, retail will not be successful in today's environment unless we bring the cars into.
But the cars
the-
even like go directly to the parking lot from that roundabout, like they're still going up and around.
They
So
want to see it. They want to drive around and see what's there.
yeah,
Yep,
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
it's an unfortunate reality that retailers, when they look at a site plan and they say, where's my visibility, where's my access, where's the proximate parking?
So
That-
it's
that's the
okay to
first-
have the visibility of driving by separate from the access of, you can't just get to the parking lot from that visible drive.
Yes, and for a couple different reasons.
I do think it's silly that we have amenities in the middle of the roundabout though,
Oh,
in the circle. That looks ridiculous.
yeah, I agree with you.
Okay.
That's something that's not That's why it's not really highlighted in the slide. It's like, it's kind of an old design. But to answer the question. So I think part of the answer is the way that the phasing on the multifamily works. So the phasing is these top phases over here are anticipated to be phase one. And then these phases down here will be two or three, however it ends up getting broken out. These middle phases are anticipated to be the last phase. And the reason for that is we want to provide this, all this parking remains surface parking until the next phase of multifamily development comes along, gets converted. And that allows for a very long time frame of people to one, sort of learn what the new routes are, where the stores are, what their path of travel is, where they should park, while they still have all this, you know, unused surface parking that they can rely on to park here and come to these stores. The second thing is, the question was access. Why is there access and then parking separate? Is that right?
Yeah, because you can't just turn and get into the parking structure there.
Right. So there will be parking available in this area for many, many years. And people will learn, for instance, this becomes really prime parking here. This all is very prime parking here. This is prime parking here. So there will remain a lot of parking options for people. And as they continue to use the site, they'll continue to, you know, navigate and learn.
Well,
Where
the
the
look
different
is
parking
Cinemark's
areas.
already prime, like it's full every weekend with.
This one here.
There, yeah.
Yeah.
I just, it still feels odd to me that anytime you have an event, you would be closing down that roundabout. Because that really does look like the main.
I'll tell you that's kind of a best practices, frankly, for some of the best retail in the country. Right? I can think of Provo Towne Centre as one. We used to have a slide that we just didn't include today. It shuts down their main entrance. They frankly have a lot more artificial congestion because they don't have these alternate, you know, paths of travel that we necessarily have here. Kieran Commons is another one that does it commonly. They shut down, you know, their center area for events all the time, which is the main kind of thoroughfare to get people, but they have an opportunity for people to get around again, similar to this, kind of an alternative route to go around the project to get to the various parking areas. So I mean, it works well. And I would also say that, you know, it's not like events are happening daily or anything of it. We're really talking about community events that happen, you know, on occasion.
Yeah, well, because the Forum one, they have events there at least once a month. At their little park, so that would be pretty frequent road closures for you. They don't have to close down their roads to have events at their space.
Honestly, we looked at their project on a couple different fronts when we were evaluating design options for this. A couple things I'll say with respect to that. One was we didn't like how they integrated or didn't really integrate their multifamily with the commercial. And we felt like you just had to walk across parking lot to get to it. So we wanted to make sure that this was much more integrated into the overall project. So that was one thing. And the second thing is we didn't want a empty restaurant syndrome. So when you have a big open space like the one that they have, when it's not being programmed, which Cal and I have been up there mostly when it's not being programmed, it kind of looks like, well, why should we go hang out there? Because there's really nothing going on. So we wanted to make sure that we broke this down from a design standpoint in a way that looked active and vibrant and inviting, even when it wasn't being used for those kinds of events.
I think you're still, I agree with a lot of what Rachel's saying. You're still having the same problem with, I mean, it's a little better, but or where you have all your housing separated by the main thoroughfare of the entire project. Like, to me, that just seems very odd and not optimal.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is separate. I don't know if you have an opinion about that you want to voice, but I mean,
It's like I'm a family. I want to go left to the mall. Great. Okay. Oh, bummer. Now I have to cross a very busy street to get there, and you know it's not super safe to let my kids, you know, wander. It just seemed like kind of contrary to the thesis of like, let's put a bunch of families right next to the mall, so they use the mall, and then the main thoroughfare separates the two.
I think our take on
Don't want your housing.
that
right
access is that it's a very low speed.
It was a only be a lot nicer.
We feel like it's a very low speed access with the roundabout traffic, with the traffic calming in there. It's very low speed. It's intended to be, you know, feel more like a small drive versus a thoroughfare. Right? I mean, the intent is to move cars through, but not move them through fast. So, you know, we actually feel like the roundabout and the ability to multi-use program it gives a lot of flexibility and a lot of vibrancy to the area. And given that there are multiple points of, you know, circulation to go around that are easily navigated, that it gives a strong possibility of having a lot of life. I mean, we're trying to bring a lot of life to the area, right? We don't want it to be just a traffic lane. Like, we want to be able to really make it an amenity.
And the challenge we were faced with is, you know, those retail partners I was mentioning, the anchors that we have to negotiate with, they would not approve a project that didn't have, you know, what they felt like was adequate access in and through the project. Because we're, I mean, at the core of what we're doing from a circulation standpoint is right now you're forced to go around the ring road. You're forced to get as far away from the project as you possibly can in order to navigate. And then you come into the project, decide where to park, get out of your car, walk, then do it all over again, right? So we're trying to invite them to come in and through. And so when we move from, you know, moving from here to here, the vehicle access, that's critical for these guys to approve it. And so then we were faced with the challenge of how do we allow cars to come through here in a way that feels safe, feels inviting, still has amenity base around it. And we've looked at many projects around the country that did it successfully, and we think incorporated a lot of the lessons learned. So. Anything else before I move on to some of the amenity slides?
Okay, so just 2 levels in the mall. Now you're going to go over the amenities.
Yes.
Okay.
So just real quick, so as I mentioned, the one thing that we were concerned about is we didn't want this to feel cavernous. We didn't want it to feel empty when it wasn't being used. And so we tried to imagine how can we break this down into more human scale in a different amenity area. This one being part of the main one here. It's envisioned to be more of a larger gathering area that's right outside that main entry to what we'll call the lobby for now. It's kind of at the core of where this retail nexus starts. In addition to that, we wanted to provide, you know, a little bit more of a focused amenity area, which is right outside. This is the escalators I was mentioning before that go up to Cinemark. If you walk through there, that's the covered parking that exists today under Cinemark. So we want to provide a different, more evening oriented, probably a little bit more adult oriented gathering environment that played well with the entertainment component and the food and beverage that we envision being a large component of the merchandise mix here. And then obviously we wanted to provide a safe environment for families that's also maybe not as mixed in with everything else. And so we provide a kind of the opposite area outside of this cafe. You know, whether it's popper fountains or you know, holiday related amenities, we see that happening in a little bit more of a, I don't want to say isolated, but more of a dedicated family area where we can create some of those safety design features to make sure that it feels like people do feel safe to let their kids come down there and hang out and aren't worried about their safety either from a vehicular standpoint or otherwise. So here's a couple of the things that we've highlighted that other projects have done well, whether it's these hardscape barriers that are also benches that allow for that hard barrier so that you create that, you know, designed areas where people can flow, you know, through this. So the kids aren't just running out into the street or something like that. Obviously bollards are a component of that. And we've also seen landscaping used really well. So we're trying to incorporate each of those design elements into the overall plaza design to maximize the quality of the design, but also make it feel safe. And finally, here's the same types of things. I'm blanking on the name of this project. What's the name of this project? One up north.
Is it Layton or
Mountain
Riverton?
Village or Station, Farmington Station.
Thank you. Thank you. So we stole from them because we thought what they did was really good.
For some reason, I thought you had done that project. What malls have you done?
Me personally or Brixton Capital?
Brixton.
Brixton did, we're working on Everett Mall right now, which is a Topgolf anchored project that's turning from a traditional mall into likely a mixed use entertainment style. Right now, Trader Joe's is open, Ult is open, Topgolf's announced, but that's in process.
Is this Everett, Washington?
Everett, Washington, yes. And then we did Stockton, California, which was a conversion of a mall into, so we did grocery, we did some larger soft goods retailers there, and then we also added in that particular case, we did climate control storage as a component in the back and sort of a non-retail space. So those are the ones that Brixton have done. I mean, You go through a bigger laundry list of the ones I've personally worked on, but that's.
But
where-
you're with Brixton now.
That's correct.
Does those relationships help you in future projects, like your relationship with Topgolf, but these relationships, you're able to use those and you find?
Yeah, sometimes, I mean, obviously it has to meet their business need. We obviously talk to each of those partners about all of our opportunities as they come along. But yeah, I mean, relationships help all the time. I mean, Target's obviously was a big relationship we cultivated over a long time and ended up, culminating. We've talked to our relationships, folks that have done other box deals about this. And I mentioned that we had talked to a couple of those retailers before, and those are the types of conversations we're having all the time. And would love to be in a position to be able to be far enough along the process that they have confidence the vision that we are willing to talk to them about is going to be effectuated. So a couple of detailed things here before I hand it back over to Robert, but one thing that is probably not quite as obvious is the amount of infrastructure that's required to be reworked or demolished in order to facilitate the vision that we're talking about here. So if you look on the right-hand side, the red hash, that's all parking lot, and it's a bit of a spaghetti junction of subgrade utilities, whether it's stormwater or water and all the various, subgrade infrastructure that has to get reworked in order to make the way for all those buildings to eventually come. So essentially what has to happen is this trunk lines that are scattered kind of all around need to be rerouted through this new, I'll call it ring road, even though it's not a road. So all that has to be done as part of the initial lift of the project. And as you can imagine, that's very expensive. In addition to that, we've got this blue area here, which is the highly amenitized plaza that we mentioned. And then finally, you've got all the components of the actual mall itself, which to redevelop is fairly extraordinary in most cases, and this is no exception. So to help you guys understand the work that has been done so far to understand these details, we've gone fairly deep at a conceptual level. I call it maybe even design development level of work here from an architecture standpoint. And you can see the various details, elevations. We've got a whole package that we put together to help our general contractors give us pricing so we understand what these challenges actually are on a kind of high level and what it's going to take from an infrastructure level and from a project level in order to effectuate the vision. So I say that just to say we're not just coming to you with a grandiose idea with no real understanding of what it's going to take in order to build something like this. We've done a lot of the homework and bring this to you with the confidence that we can actually do what we have on the page. So with that, I'll turn it over to Robert, who's going to.
So really quick, I like
Yep.
how you have the covered, in front of the stores. What percentage of the storefronts are covered?
I think they're almost
They're
all
all
covered.
covered?
I would say
Okay.
maybe the only exception would be. These cafes may have just minimal
Oh,
covering,
okay,
like,
yeah.
little entrance covers, but there's walkways in front of all of these along this side. And then, of course, these retailers will just have the typical, whoever it is, of TJ Maxx or whatever entry would be typical. There we go.
All right, I'm just gonna take a minute and walk through HTRZs and that process. So several years ago, the city of Utah created the Housing and Transit Reinvestment Zone Act legislatively. And this act allows cities to propose an HTRZ zone to the state. And it has to be within a certain radius of either heavy rail, front runner, light rail, or bus rapid transit. In this case, we have a unique situation. We're within the radius of both front runner and the UBX line. And what the HTRZ does is it enables a portion of the incremental tax revenue to be captured over a period of time to support the development and the extraordinary development costs. It does require mixed use housing, at least 50 housing units to the acre, and a minimum of 12% affordable. The slide says 10%, it's a typo. 9% affordable at the 80% AMI level, and 3% affordable at 60% AMI level.
So is that,
Go ahead.
is that 50 units per 23 acres? Or just for the housing acres?
It's the housing within the zone. So whatever acreage is within the zone requires a minimum density of 50 units to the acre within the zone.
And about the AMI, is that based on our county, state, or city AMI?
I believe it's county, but we've got Ben here for the,
It's county, that's correct. And it's based on reports that are provided by the Housing and Urban Development.
And would you intend to do the affordable units scattered throughout all the housing or all together?
so our proposal right now is, we have a section of the project, which is the very west side, which is the existing mobile home park that we're proposing as townhomes. And we would actually propose them as for sale, affordable townhomes. So they would meet those levels on a for sale basis. And we think that, helps the city meet, its for sale desires, have for sale product, would be owner occupied, and affordability. And then the balance, so that would be a big chunk of the requirement would kind of come up front in that phase. And then the balance would come over time in the rest of the project.
Just scattered throughout then?
Proportionally through the project. So there's never a time where we would build a portion of the project unless we proportionally build the affordable portion or we've already met it.
Who manages these affordable units as far as, like, do you guys have to keep managing it over the years, qualifying their income and?
Yeah.
Like that.
So the for sale, Ben, you're gonna have to help me on some of the specifics around for sale, but there will be a deed restriction, right? That will be managed through restrictions on the property and title and lending. The for rent is a management process, so the rental management company has to make sure that they are meeting the requirements, the minimums, tracking the incomes, and the reporting.
Do you guys do your own rental management or do you use someone?
We do our own rental management, yes. Just wrapping up the slide, 80% of the tax increment revenues are eligible to be captured over a maximum of 25 years. And it does require the city to adopt zoning for the development before sending the proposal to the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. We talked about kind of the steps, this is the Governor's Office. They're looking really to promote transit, promote affordable housing and redevelopment, especially within those corridors where the state has invested significant capital in transit. So, they've provided this as a tool to help facilitate those processes. So some of the uses for HTRZ increment, income targeted housing costs, structured parking, enhanced development costs, extraordinary development costs. When we look at a site like this, there are significant, for example, utilities that crisscross the site that all have to be realigned and put into the new roadway alignments. And those are extraordinary costs. Horizontal costs, vertical costs, land purchase costs, cost of bonds, and administration of the HTRZ are all eligible costs that can be paid by the HTRZ. And the purpose of this is ultimately to build value. When we look at any tax increment financing tool, HTRZ included, we look at a base asset value, which is the blue here. And assuming that it's in a situation where it's not going to increase on its own, it needs a little shot in the arm. This is what the HTRZ can help do, and so it allows to increase asset values over time. And at the end of that time period, there's a new basis that becomes taxable. And the increment, which is the area in green, is what's captured and available for development costs.
Councilor Whipple has a question.
Yeah, so the problem with these projections of the increased revenue and everything from the project are actually the existing Provo Towne Centre mall, right? Because it wasn't that long ago, 26 years ago. And the first chart that you gave us was showing the revenue just plummeting.
From today, but it was, it did reach a high in 2007.
Right, but that still would have been during the time that we'd only be getting incremental amounts. now that that thing is fully developed and everything, it's an albatross.
Yeah, I guess what I would say to that is market conditions shift. And, you know, we are reacting, Brixton is reacting to the market, right? And looking at what is today and what could it be in the future, right? And I don't know that we're asking, you know, in this scenario, the city's not taking any risk, right? If we don't do anything, then we're in the blue box here for the next 25 years. Unless something changes, maybe something economically changes and suddenly it becomes financially feasible for us to come in and redevelop without any tax increment, but maybe not, right? And we don't foresee that happening. So, you know, a tax increment financing tool is necessary if we're going to turn the trajectory of the mall. And this has happened in Utah. We take Orem as an example.
Orm's the best example of that.
So the University Mall, like all malls, found itself in a similar situation a few years ago with declining revenue, declining sales, declining property tax values. And the owners of that mall worked with the city of Orem to implement a CDA. Right, it was a fairly extensive CDA that included additional square footage for office, hotel, retail, and multifamily units in over a 10-year period.
Theirs was a 10-year period as opposed to
The
25?
build out was a 10-year,
Okay, what was their period on there?
30 years. Make sure I got that right here. 20 years, sorry. My slide's kind of cut off here. And this was their projection of the tax increment increase over time. Now, what they were able to accomplish there, I think you're all familiar with the additional shops, restaurants, office space, the hotel and multifamily that was added there. You know, obviously Provo Towne Centre is a different mall. So I don't think office is a use that we would propose because we don't think it's commercially viable. But, you know, at that location, they were able to do that. And, you know, the proof is really in the pudding. And this is fairly small text. But the 2013 base value was $129 million. The 2025 assessed value was over $500 million. So 4.5-fold increase over the time period. And the investment paid off.
At what year did Orem start theirs? Their tax increment financing part?
2018.
That's actually the second one. Year before that.
So they're still not seeing any of this benefit?
Not till
I mean-
not till 2038. But
It's their school district.
What is your estimated total of the gap or the tax increment that you expect?
yeah, so Justin, do you want to?
Yeah, so what we've requested is a bondable amount at right around $20 million. I mean, the gap itself, if you really take it out, it's probably closer to 80, but based on our financing projections, we see the gap in a bondable amount of about $20 million. That's what we're requesting.
So 25 years or 20 million?
Bondable amount, so that doesn't necessarily
Oh.
A is equal B in that case, because those payments are going to a bond holder at that point. So what we're looking for is an upfront bondable amount to go to offset infrastructure costs of approximately $20 million.
So where we are today, we have been to the Planning Commission with 4 requests. And those will be coming to you for your consideration. And we wanted to just touch on the requests that we made at Planning Commission, some of the feedback that we heard and what we think our request and the need is when we come before you as City Council. So first, As I mentioned in the slide deck here, the application for the HTRZ actually comes from the city, and the zoning needs to be in place. So we are in the process of requesting a rezoning of this property to accommodate this project. And that step involves what we've requested is an ITOD zone, amending the general plan to accommodate the ITOD zone, and a text amendment to the ITOD zone. One of the challenges that we faced is finding a zone within the Provo City ordinances that accommodates something like this. And so the ITOD zone is the most favorable. It's the closest thing that can accommodate something like this, but it needs a few tweaks. One of the requests that we made was that some tweaks be made to it that would allow us to build townhomes that are for sale. And some of the feedback that we heard from Planning Commission was, well, we don't think townhomes are an appropriate use in an ITOD zone. It should be more dense. And I just want to point out that the project on University Parkway, River's Edge, built townhomes within an ITOD zone 4 years ago. But theirs are for rent. And within the text of the zoning, you can actually build them for rent because of the lot standards. But you can't sell them individually because the lot sizes get too small. So the requests that we made were to accommodate, facilitate that use. Planning Commission recommended not approving that. They didn't feel like townhomes were an appropriate use within the ITOD zone. But again, I come back to, we're following precedent here that townhomes have been approved in an ITOD zone, but not for sale. So, you know, that's something that we need to consider. The other text amendment request that we had made was regarding setback requirements adjacent to residential zones. And the request that we made was that building heights be allowed for every foot horizontally, that you could go up 2 feet. And Planning Commission felt like that was too steep, and they preferred the transition language that is in the ITOD zone. However, the language that is in the ITOD zone currently requires within the first 100 feet of any residential zone, you can only be 3 stories high with a gabled roof. Well, if we come back to, if we go back to the site plan here. Let's get to that. I think I can get a better one here. Okay. So we have residential zone here, 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 and here. And those residential zones primarily house duplex units and multiplex units. And we just want to point out that if we have a 100-foot setback limited to 3 stories in height, that it dramatically reduces the density that we can fit on this project. And by about, call it 250 to 300 units. So it's about a quarter of the units. And one of the challenges is that it affects the way that the parking lays out. And so we think there's room to work around this setback from residential properties. You know, we had proposed 2 feet of vertical for every foot of horizontal. I think we could probably, you know, come to a 1 foot to 1 foot. So every foot of horizontal to 1 foot of vertical, that increases that setback by about double from what we had proposed in the text. But those are 2 very critical issues for us on the rezone that make this project viable or unviable. And so we need to make sure that we get really clear on those.
So what exactly is behind you? Is there a church with the?
Yeah.
The church part?
So we have a church here, a church here. This is open space that the church owns. And then we have a duplex, couple of duplexes here, and then 2 here.
Those are all duplexes.
Mhm.
Are they owned or rented?
I couldn't say.
They're all HOAs,
They're all HOAs.
I'm pretty sure.
Sorry, what I didn't hear.
I think they're pretty much HOAs. Daniel lives in. The one around, yeah, that helps in. East is not on HOA.
It's actually a really nice HOA.
I think
like
this
they
is
do a
an
good job.
HOA here too.
Okay, you go drive around there.
Just for context,
Oh, it's what you drive through before you get to.
Yeah, they maintain it well.
this building is the closest right here, to any residential areas. And I guess this one as well. They're both, 50 feet.
And was there a street between you and the residential?
Property, and there's a driveway, yes.
But there's no street going down there, like you'd be onto their property line. Like your property lines touch.
Yes. Yeah, to the property line, but from our property line, we're back 50 feet.
Can I ask a question? Did you explore concept plans that use some of those townhomes as the buffer so that you don't have to amend the TOD zone?
So, yes, again, 100 feet is a long ways, and it just reduces the density dramatically. So, you know, in this area, we do have some townhomes that could potentially buffer there. We don't have as big an issue here because the property line steps back, right? We just have more room to work. This side, you know, we have one little corner here that gets close, but it's not within 70 feet or so. You know, it's fairly removed. But then we're kind of pinned on this south side by the mall as it exists. And so, you know, what we're talking about here is, you know, it's really just density, you know, and building a dense urban project, right, on a redeveloping mall. And how do we fit that in? Like I say, I think we can adjust the ratio to a 1-to-1, which is a 45-degree angle, and be a minimum of 50 feet from the property line.
What do you mean by that? You mean having it go?
What I'm suggesting is, you know, we're 50 feet from the property line on this side. That's as close as we get. And we're 50 feet tall.
Go 50 up, 50 feet up.
So for every 50 feet horizontally, we go up 50 feet. And that results in a 45-degree angle from the ground to the top of the roof.
Gotcha.
One just a reminder to highlight is not only is it present feasibility issues to lose that many units, but we also have the requirement on the HDRZ side to have enough density to meet that 50 units per acre. So we have to have the density to meet the requirements of the HDRZ. So it's a little bit of a double whammy with that. So
could you put some of the townhomes here and maybe move this building over there?
Yeah, that's what I was
Well, you can see the building. I mean, there's probably a lot of sliding around that we can do, and you know, we're more than happy to look at it, but it will reduce the density available on the site without somehow finding a way to.
I think I'd be more comfortable with you trying to finagle it and move some of those townhomes. Those townhomes are out on an island. And that's your 80% AMI and your 60% AMI. They're the ones that are gonna need to be closer to transit, in my opinion, than your for rent at market rate apartments. So you've kind of discriminated against them, kind of pushed them out instead of putting them closer to the transportation hubs. I'd like to see more of that integrated into your project and have you kind of tweak it so that we can see more of that.
Is there a distance? I mean, right now it says 100 feet, which is, you know, a quarter to a third of the site, you know, in depth. I mean, is there some feedback on?
Well, I'd be okay being creative about the setback. My biggest heartburn about this is home ownership. We made that very clear from the beginning. 87 out of what is 340. It does not, that's a nod to home ownership. What we don't need in this part of Provo is a bunch of more apartments. What we need is more home ownership. And so I feel strongly, I like what I'm seeing. I want this project to happen. And you're going to tell me it doesn't pencil out. And I wish I hear that. I'm just saying we've got to figure out a way to be more creative, because the kind of split of 1,300 and then 87 I understand if it's one big building, it's hard to split up one big building, but we've got separate buildings. You could take a couple of those bigger buildings and make those condos or something like that. I feel very strongly about more home ownership, and to me, 87 doesn't even come close. We've talked to other projects about 50-50. Now, I realize not everyone on the council may see that the same, but I do. I feel strongly that we need to be creative about figuring that out. Now, if that comes to setbacks and others things, I'd be willing to be creative. But I would say that the home ownership, in my mind, doesn't even come close.
So, not that this may matter to you, I don't know. Condo developers typically plan on selling 2 to 3 units a month. That's about the absorption rate in a development project. And they can plan about a year to absorb. So they can build 24 to 36 units in a building and absorb those over a year. And they can manage the carry cost of doing that. Well, any one of these buildings is, approaching 200 units, multifamily. Multifamily, we absorb on lease up 15 to 20 units a month. And we can absorb in 12 to 15 months is our typical absorption period. I know it may not matter to you guys, but from a financial standpoint, those are real challenges that we have to face.
Yeah.
And so, if we can only absorb, sell 2 to 3 units a month, I mean, how long would it take us to sell 600 units? Right. Those are the challenges that we face, that we're trying to overcome. And it's why, frankly, we don't see condo projects being built at the same rate we see apartment units being built. There's also a shift in the marketplace of renters by choice who can rent, and it's especially true today. It's not always been true, and it will shift back. But today, what you rent for and what you pay in terms of a mortgage, there's so much disparity between the two that people are choosing to rent, right? Even if they can afford to buy, they choose to rent because that's a better financial choice for them. And it's been happening for several years, and we foresee it happening for the next several years. So if we're trying to plan housing and housing availability, like policy-wise, we can put a stake in the ground and say, this is the way it's going to be, but the market may not respond.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're asking us to give you money for something that's not necessarily in our goals, right? So I think there needs to be more give and take from the other end. And you're asking a lot from us.
Yeah, and I would say I do care that this is successful. I do care about the finances. And I also believe that there's got to be some way to figure this out. We've worked, as we look at this project, again, I just can't imagine moving forward with that number of apartments and that kind of home ownership. Just on that, I personally think I would say, well, then we should wait.
Agreed.
Just me personally. And I really want this to happen. I love what you put together. I like what you're doing, and I want you to be successful. And I want the city to be successful too. And I feel very strongly that we've got to be more creative in figuring out a way to do that.
We know the market is there. We have so many young singles that want to own, and they want small, they want apartment owning. You had some of that in your comments on the planning commission. I believe the market is there to do that. Like at least one of those buildings for sale.
Is okay about it. So I have a couple kind of related questions around housing. What is your current plan with the manufactured housing that would be displaced for these townhomes?
I'll go and take that. There's Kyle, Justin. Sure.
So the plan currently is that there's a little somewhere between 30 and 35 at the moment that we anticipate. If it happened today, they would be impacted, but obviously this is not happening today. So one of the things we've offered is to provide at least 18 months worth of notice to anybody, from the time we would actually need it vacated. So we want to give them plenty of time. And then during that 18-month period, we really want to work with each of them individually to figure out what the right solution is for them, because the the range of desires and potential outcomes varies widely. Some of those mobile homes are very old and may not be able to be moved. Some of them can maybe easily be moved, and we don't necessarily know what their housing goals are either. So we want to take that time in order to kind of individually work with each of them to figure out what the right solution is. I mean, there are varieties of different things that they could do, but we haven't had those conversations yet, and we want to make sure that there's plenty of time in this process to have those conversations. So, like I said, we've committed to minimum of 18 months. Could be potentially longer than that, but 18 months of notice for that.
Is there willingness for more substantial commitments, like to help them relocate? I think these are some of the most vulnerable members in our community. Again, I'm with Craig. I want to find a way to make this happen, but I think each of us have sort of our red lines. Like this to me is a red line. Like we're not going to displace these people and not help them relocate, and me vote for this. So 18 months is nice getting that head start, but I talked to one woman who just saved up all her money, put a mortgage on this on one of the homes, and now it's like for her to find the money to relocate this in a place that works with her life is like just catastrophically impactful to her personal financial situation. So I recognize you have constraints, but like the idea here is to find a win-win for our community, but also for you all. And so that's just something I want to be clear about.
Yeah, understood. And I'll just, from an operational standpoint, we don't allow folks to move in. So meaning nobody can just come in and legally just buy a mobile home from somebody else. Because one, we want to know who's in there. And two, we want to make them aware of this scenario. So if somebody comes in to says, hey, we want to acquire this home over here. We said, well, okay, probably can't do that, and here's why. So we try as best we can to avoid those situations by making sure that there's transparency with us, so they can be made aware of those situations. We do not allow on our end for new folks to move in for all the reasons we just talked about.
And haven't you been doing that for a while? What's the last time that you took in a new?
I don't know exactly, but it's at least been a year, probably a couple of years, so we've had that policy at least.
I didn't realize that people purchase. So do they rent the spot from you, the land, and then they provide their own?
Buy the house.
Yeah,
I thought you owned both.
and some mobile home parks do operate that way. In our case, the individual owns.
It's
the
their
home.
home.
They're typical, and then they lease the land on
Okay.
the lot. Correct.
Didn't know that.
And then I have another question.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
on that? There are challenges around mobile home parks because there are age restrictions on moving mobile homes. Sometimes they age out or they get degraded enough that they can't be moved. So the question becomes, well, whose job is to maintain the mobile home? Like if it can't be moved, whose job is that? Is that the landowners or is that the homeowners? And those are questions that they're sticky, but we don't believe the landowner is responsible to maintain individuals' mobile homes.
Don't get me wrong, you'll hear no argument from me about the problematic nature of mobile homes as a model, but nonetheless, they're still residents of our community. Okay, so my other question is, are there any additional asks you all plan for this project that are not currently on the table? Like additional PIFs from like a performance perspective on tax, sales tax?
Yeah, we've requested the sales tax share as a component. It's not technically part of the HDRZ, and we've requested a PID, right? A PID, but not in order to put additional increment on, but basically just to take the revenues that are proposed to come in and use that as the bonding mechanism. So it's not an additional monetary request, it's just a structural.
But that's the vehicle for the bond.
That's correct. Yeah. So
And
am I missing anything I forgot? I think that's it.
And to be clear, just to make sure everybody understands, a PID does not obligate the city necessarily. I mean, there are ways that a city can participate, but as of right now, I don't think we're asking that the city necessarily
What we're
guarantee.
requesting is to get back a portion of the revenues that we generate, either sales tax or property tax, over a baseline, and be able to monetize that to help pay for the project.
Yeah.
So we're not asking for any of the existing tax base, we're asking for a portion of income.
And how much of that exactly are you asking for?
The CRZ is 80%, and we've requested right now, our modeling shows 50% on the sales tax share.
0.5%.
Which is half.
0.5%, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is 50%.
Going back to the mobile home issue, like right now, there is one of those trailers listed for sale. on Zillow, like somebody's trying to actively sell one of these homes in your park.
Oh,
Yeah, well, I had flagged it and sent it to Development Services a few months ago when I first saw it. It's been up there since October, so they're not moving it.
We don't
But-
know if that could be bought to move, I don't know.
That's right.
Yeah, the listing just did say that it must be moved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have had folks come in who want to purchase either vacant or something, this trailer, and then move it to another site, land, mobile park, whatever it is. So we will generally allow that,
okay.
in our goal, obviously, to eventually vacate.
So,
the park, so.
and I talked to some of you there before. You said that there are 30 to 35 units affected. I know that, you know, some people have moved out, have left their properties. So how many of those homes have already been vacated? And do you have any more that are in the process of being vacated?
I mean, I think there's always usually a couple that are in process of, legal, turnover.
Right, for
not.
violations and things like
For
that.
reason. It's very, very few that we enforce frankly violations on, it's usually financial reasons. But that 30 to 35 includes folks that have already moved out. That's not necessarily mobile home trailers or mobile home units that are sitting there, because there are, I think, 2 that were in the process of either removing or demolishing, right, in that shape a little bit, so.
Yeah, the reason I ask about that is, I don't know exactly how many households are potentially affected by this right now, because I know some of them are already in the process of leaving before we do any of this.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly surprised that you don't have more specific numbers for us on that, where you can't say, all right, there are still 30 units that are in full compliance. We've got 3 that are in violation, and so we expect that they'll be gone before we even consider moving forward with that.
Well, I can tell you all but 5 are in some level of non-compliance, operationally or financially. So. How many of those do you want to consider moving out? It's a little bit of a question. I can't exactly answer
Right,
your question.
but if there are only 5 households there that are in full compliance with the restrictions and covenants of living in the mobile home park, where there could be, through normal legal processes, a way to remove them. If this weren't happening, then that's a very different situation, right? That you would need to work with 5 residents or 5 homes to
The
get.
reason we haven't done that is it's necessarily a purpose approach.
Right.
We could just lay the hammer down on everybody and fully enforce, because there's not one tenant that has an active lease. They're all in a hold. It's called hold. So we have the legal right to do a lot of things. We're just don't think that's the right thing to do.
And I think that's actually an important thing for our community to know.
Yeah.
That some of the people who are living here are vulnerable, not just because of their socioeconomic status, but because they are actually not in compliance with the current requirements of the place that they're living right now.
And oftentimes I would say with normal standards of safety and health.
So like that's a complicating factor that we need to consider. Some of these people may not have on their own strong rights to remain in this area already. It doesn't mean that there are good options for them that they could afford elsewhere, but it adds color to the conversation.
Scott Henderson.
Speaking in Mayor Judkin's absence, there's a couple of points that she wanted me to bring up. I think for those properties that you've discussed that may still be there, I think she really wanted to look at a target of a $10,000 relocation allowance, possibly for those ones, as something to look at as part of your evaluation of the process. And another point that she wanted brought up and look at is just to make sure, as both staff and you look at your design, that and Becky brought that up, make sure we have effective placement of transit locations close to those who would be most likely the user. So make sure we spend enough time on that. But those were a couple concepts that she wanted me to express for. Thank you.
Councilor Whitlock.
Thank you. Just a few more questions. I wanted, maybe you said this and I missed it. You're saying so the sales tax TIF is a 0.5% over what period of time?
30.
So 30 years. Okay, and then maybe this is a Cody question or your question, but this HTRZ zone, it also requires the city to take 15% of our sales tax and put it into a transportation fund. Can you explain how that works? I didn't fully understand all that from the packet.
That's a big question.
Is that a Cody question? Isn't there like some requirement?
Yeah, there is. So with the HTRZ, a portion of it goes towards what? If you give me 1 second,
Okay, I can ask another question in the meantime. So the chart you provided, the latest actual numbers were as of 2023. I was curious, what were the numbers for 2024 and 2025?
Yes, because we had the target going in 2024.
Yes.
I don't have that, but if we can.
Okay.
That's something the city would have to share with us, actually.
Okay, maybe we can get into. Are you not in contract with the current operators of the mall? Couldn't they also share?
Operators, but vast majority of the retailers do not share their.
Do not share their sales receipts with you. Okay. And then Cody, you have that number now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Cody Hill, Provo City Economic Development. So it's 15%. So 15% of the sales tax revenue that's generated within the HRZ area goes towards the city TIF fund.
That's 15% of the total 8% or whatever. It's not 15% of the city's.
I believe it's 15% of the state's portion.
Of the state's.
Are you saying 1.5 or 5.0?
15.15.
Yeah.
So you're saying the portion is what we already said at the state anyway,
I believe that's correct. Is that? Yeah.
so it's not really relevant to us.
Yeah, so it's
This
not,
is separate.
it doesn't cut. So I guess it just depends on what the denominator is. Is it from the state's allotment or is it from the total? And then it gets.
Yeah, I think
The state.
this is the state
Okay,
program.
so it's not relevant to
States.
us. Then. Okay.
Yeah, it's not our point of sale portion.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
And do we have an understanding of what all these percentages together are in actual dollar amounts?
Sure, yeah. To prepare for this, we wanted to have a more general discussion, but I had to bring that forward to you on projections actually look like. Annual standpoint. Yeah.
Thank you.
What are is that parking at the back of your second apartment complex?
On the right, talking.
Yeah.
Townhomes.
Oh, those are townhomes.
Yeah. With parking.
And because it's a townhome, it's not required to have the 100 feet, right?
Right. It doesn't, well, yeah, it doesn't go over the 3 stories.
There's a question, is the townhomes, those 2-story, 2 and 3?
Tyler, do you remember?
We've shown a variety of different designs, so I think those ones might just be the 2 stories.
But you have 2 and 3.
It just depends, we haven't fully fleshed that out.
And do all of your apartments have elevators?
Yes, they do. This is what we call a wrap, where it wraps around a parking structure. Those are five levels of units from the ground floor, and those have elevators. And then these 2 in the middle are what we call a podium. So the apartment units are built on top of the parking. And so those are 5 levels on top of 2 levels of parking. So it ends up being 7 stories tall. And
With
they
an
all
elevator.
and they all have elevators.
And the ones to the east also have elevators?
Yes.
Councilor Whitlock?
Just for our education, assume you know your business, but I'd like to understand. So you said there's this like secular trend of malls failing across the United States. Explain to us why this will work. Like, why will this work and be durable for the next 50 years as opposed to, succumbing to this trend, but just delaying it by a little bit?
Good question. So let me just reference some of my work before I came to Brixton. So, I spent, almost 5 years at CBL, which is a publicly traded REIT out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. They had 85 malls. I spent 5 years with them redeveloping malls. Their malls are mostly located in, Midwest, Southeast, and a little bit in the Northeast, more in secondary and tertiary markets. And so they ended up seeing the front wave of the secular shift. So obviously as malls that were winning continue to win. So those that are the dominant, we'll call fortress malls, continue to win. You think of City Creek, you think of just like everybody knows where it is, everybody's willing to travel to go to it, right? Well, that takes the energy out of all the other malls that used to serve those areas. So that's been happening for a long time. So CBO was kind of at the front wave of that. And then I went and worked for a company called Macerich, which is public traded REIT out of Santa Monica, California. They had higher quality malls, but they had some of the lower tier ones. So their options, more like this asset, had a little bit better demographics, a little bit better setting to reimagine what it could be instead of just saying, hey, well, maybe we need to just tear this down and do something completely different with it. We could reuse the things. And the reason this works is because, and we don't have the slide in here, but if you think about how mall traditionally works, people come maybe sometime during the week to go to a movie or maybe eat the food court or something like that. But the bulk of the time that's spent in a mall is, let's call it 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the evenings. And then on the weekends, it's fairly busy, most of the time. Well, that means during the day and in the morning, pretty much every time, there is no activity. The only people there are virtually the people that operate the mall and the people that work at the mall. So adding a mix of uses into the mix creates vibrancy, it creates traffic, it creates a self-sustaining story. So basically it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The residents that are there like having the amenities. They like being able to walk down and go across a short pedestrian walkway and get their coffee and go eat a bagel or do whatever they're going to do in the morning. And then they may come back for lunch. They may even work there or work nearby. And all of a sudden it becomes activity throughout the day. So they are getting the benefit of that mix of use of amenities. Consequently, they're typically willing to pay a premium to live there because it's a nicer lifestyle. And all those businesses are benefiting from the fact that they have residents that are able to walk down, typically have good disposable income to be able to spend on higher price point items and be able to make that a self-fulfilling prophecy. A traditional mall doesn't have that. A traditional mall relied on the model where Dillard's and JCPenney's and Macy's would come and they would drive 1 million visitors there because everybody knew who they were and you had to go to a department store, and everybody in the middle relied on that business to bring all the traffic. We all know what happened with Macy's and Dillard's and Bon-Ton, even Steers. You go through the list of all department stores. When that business model collapsed, it took most malls with them. And so now there's not that anchor driver. So by creating this mix of uses, you're creating that activity that used to be brought by those anchors. So hopefully that answers.
No, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, I'm realizing we are definitely over time. The real numbers, where are the real numbers? Are they here now or are they coming in the future? Real numbers as far as the actual dollar amounts of.
We've got a model. We certainly will. Cody's work with us, we're willing to share all that and happy to.
Okay, I don't know if we have time to do this now or if we need to do another work meeting to finish this.
Yeah.
So.
And we'd be happy to come back in front of you and go through some more of the details, answer some of these questions.
Okay.
That was kind of what we.
All right, so yep, let's plan on another work meeting. We need to talk about more with this for sure. But thank you for all this extra information.
Yeah, and let me also just say, this is tremendously exciting. This would be a wonderful asset for the city. So as you hear us deal with our challenges, especially it has to do with housing, no different than the challenges you have in trying to make the site work. And I'm convinced that we can find a way to make that work, but I'm very excited about what this will bring to the city.
We're excited about the possibility.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead with the presentation regarding the 2027 budget. No.
Nope.
Of administrative services. Presented by Dan Follett.
If you get that contract, you can earn a break.
We're gonna get that 5 minutes back.
Good,
Good. Good tickets.
you're up.
Thank you, Municipal Council. We appreciate the opportunity to talk about administrative services. Every year when we do this presentation, we've asked the Justice Court to do an update on the Justice Court. Judge Schreiner is here today to do that update. He needs to leave as soon as possible. And so we're going to move his portion at the beginning of the meeting. So Judge, if you could come up, and then Scott Henderson would also like to say a few words this time.
Well, with Judge Schreiner's presentation, there's also a chance for a celebration. I think anytime a longtime employee sticks with us for 30 years, that is deserving celebration. Judge Schreiner is celebrating that 30-year anniversary tomorrow, isn't it? All right. Sorry, I'm taking from you're going to shoot confetti cannons, then go ahead and do that. But personally, I go back to my first days, and Steve, that at that time working in legal, was a good friend. Was a good friend in a transition to a place where I didn't know anybody at Provo City. And, you know, we talked a lot about basketball. We talked a lot about kids. We did those things, but that's something that really helped in an individual's transition. But Steve has always been that top performer, and you can see that in where he's at now. And he is an amazing asset to our city and to our community, and somebody I'm very proud of to be able to call a friend. And we have his certificate for 30 years, along with the recognition that he receives. And so if we could, let's congratulate Steve together on 30 great years.
Well, thank you, everyone. I started when I was 10 years old. Well, thank you. And the mayor's not here, huh? She had to leave and be in St. George. Right here? Okay. Well, members of the council then, last year was my first address to the council. I stood before you prior to the NCAA basketball tournament last year. Last year's basketball team made it to the Sweet 16. I don't know if you remember that. And this year,
Still a little sensitive about
the first week of the tournament was played last week, and the Cougars didn't make it out of the first round. So bummer deal as it relates to that. But being a former BYU basketball player, I thought it was appropriate that Dave McCann, in yesterday's Deseret News article about this year's team, quoted the German poet Ludwig Jakubowski. And he said, "Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it's happened." I kind of like that. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. With fabulous freshmen, including Bear Bachmeyer and the football team, and AJ DeBonson, the basketball team, and Jane Hedengren in track and field, there's much for Cougars to smile about. And you all running Cougar Town have much to smile about. If you don't know Jane Hedengren, Google her. Right, Brian? Google her.
Amazing.
She's phenomenal. Anyway, I'm grateful for the opportunity to address you here today. I promise to be brief. It's been a little more than 2 years since I began my tenure as the Provo Justice Court judge. And tomorrow, as Scott said, will mark my 30 years having worked for Provo City, 28 in the Provo City Attorney's Office, many of those years with Brian. And I loved working in the Provo City Attorney's Office, and I have loved working in the Provo Justice Court as your judge. And my colleagues at the court are amazing. They are dedicated Provo City employees working to serve the citizens of Provo. And from my perspective, they are doing an excellent job. As you may or may not be aware, every 4 years, justice courts are required to go through a recertification process. And our court did so most recently in 2023. So we'll probably be doing that again next year. Is that right, Rhiannon? And as part of that recertification process, individual justice court judges are supposed to be meeting with the governing body that created the court at least yearly, which is why I'm here today. And part of that is to go over the budget of the court, to review compliance with the requirements and operational standards of the court, and to discuss other items of common concern. I'll leave the court's budget to people like Rhiannon, who's our court executive, and to Dan. But I want to assure you that the Provo Justice Court meets, if not exceeds, the operational standards set by statute and the Judicial Council of the state of Utah. Provo Justice Court is one of the larger, I know it's one of the larger, if not the largest, single judge justice courts in the state. Last year we handled about 11,000 cases. You can imagine. There's only 365 days in a year, of which I think there's 260 that were open. So when you think about it that way, we handled over 1,900 misdemeanor criminal cases, over 2,200 small claims cases, and over 6,600 traffic cases. So the police are out doing their job to keep Provo streets safe. So we are pretty busy. We had a large calendar this morning of over 70 cases, and we have a calendar this afternoon. So I appreciate you letting me go first because I need to get back. I don't have any pressing concerns that I need to bring up with this body. If there are any questions or concerns that you have for me, feel free to ask. I know this is meant to be a short thing, but any member of this council, the mayor's office, the mayor, is welcome to come to the Justice Court anytime. If you have issues, if you have questions, if you have concerns, feel free to talk to me directly, Rhiannon directly, and we'll respond. And you are, again, invited out to the Justice Court anytime you want to come. I want to thank each member of the council for the support that is given to the court and for your dedicated service to the citizens of Provo. I want you to know that it doesn't go unnoticed. Again, I thank you for your time. We have time for questions. If you have questions, feel free to ask.
Well, I would just say that with your efficiency, we should be thanking you.
Okay.
That's remarkable.
So, Scott's been out to see how we work, and if you have any questions, you can ask Scott too. He can give you an unbiased.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Judd.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Judd before you go? All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. Just to go through administrative services, if we can turn to the next page. Those are right here. Okay. Let's see if I can. There we go. So administrative services includes these 6 divisions. So city recorder, cybersecurity, facilities, finance, information systems, and then justice court that we just heard from. Most of the services we provide are focused internally. Justice court obviously is more external, and city recorder is a mix. We all have customers that are internal and external, but most of them are internal services that we provide in administrative services. In terms of the questions that were asked by the council, unfunded and underfunded needs we'll talk about those on the next slide when we discuss supplemental requests for the FY27 budget. Fee changes, there are no fee change requests within administrative services. Requests that will increase ongoing operation expense. Again, we'll talk about those in the supplemental request. And then in terms of current budget constraints, at this point in time, there are none. And council budget priorities, we always welcome and hope that we can be very helpful to the council in providing any kind of information or support that they need that you need for your priorities. In terms of cybersecurity, and when we talk about supplemental requests, we have a couple of requests that we're asking for this year. The first one is contractual increases, and these are simply contracts that we have in place, primarily Arctic Wolf that we use to secure our networks. And we have contractual agreement. We have terms in those agreements where there's escalation in price on a yearly basis, and so that's what that $20,200 is. The other area that we are requesting additional support in cybersecurity is we would like to add an analyst. Right now, we have one person, Tyler, who's with us today, and he's just exceptional in terms of monitoring our network, not only during normal business hours here, but offsite, weekends, vacations, sick leave, you name it. We would like to be able to have a little more backup there. Unfortunately, the bad guys aren't letting up their pressure at all. In fact, it only intensifies with each passing day, each passing year, each passing, global event that takes place. And so that's one area that we would like to increase the budget. In terms of information systems, we have contractual increases, and those primarily relate to existing software that we have in place, OnBase, Kayenta, and CityView. And so those increases total $18,960. Last year, we implemented a new website for the city, and the ongoing support of that website is $124,000. And that's what you see that increase there for. And then we have some hardware, central disk storage infrastructure that provides support throughout the city, including public safety. And the equipment itself is starting to be near end of life. And so we need to replace that, and that's $410,000. Now the $410,000, we're still working on that to see if there's ways that we can spread that out over a few years. If there are some of the equipment that we can replace and some we can defer, but in total, it's the $410,000. And then Justice Court, again, we have contractual increases. The two primary drivers there are the building that the Justice Court is in is leased. And in that lease agreement, there are increases on an annual basis. The other item is that we contract for security services at the Justice Court. And so some of it in that $17,908 relates to the security. So those are.
So is that the deputies you talk about, the contracted?
Yeah. So when you go to the Justice Court, they're not Provo City police officers. Right. They're it's a security service that my understanding is, and Rhiannon can talk to it more than I can, but that the Justice Court has found that to be a very efficient and cost-effective way and a secure way to provide security at the Justice Court. Is that fair to say, Rhiannon?
Yes, and having you have Provo City police officers at the door screening people or handling security, it creates this conflict of interest. It's the same officer stuff on the straight side of these people.
So I won't go through every one of these. I will say that the department, we just have excellent employees in administrative services, and the accomplishments are numerous and significant. And this is just a very, very highest level of kind of what has been accomplished over the past year. In city recorder, Heidi earned certified municipal clerk and Utah certified clerk designations both last year. Implemented a number of improvements in document management, did 24 employee newsletters, and was elected to positions with the Central Utah Recorders Association and Utah Municipal Clerks Association. So I think it's fair to say that we have a recorder that's very, very active in the recorder community, and that brings a lot of value to Provo City. In terms of cybersecurity, provided incident response services 24/7, risk and advisory support for multiple application and system reviews, 66 technology projects that improve security and updated strategies. Tyler works on consistently staying ahead of the bad guys and does an excellent job of that. Key accomplishments for facilities, completed an emergency sewer line replacement at Fire Station 3, did upgrades to ServiceNow, which is the software that facilities utilizes to provide service throughout the city to all the departments. Did a remodel of Station 26 kitchen, new construction at the airport, stucco at the Peaks Arena, and started a 5-year elevator replacement plan at the library. Our elevators at the library are nearing end of life. Finance received the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Award. And then also we received GFOA recognition for the annual comprehensive financial report and popular annual financial reports. We received a clean audit opinion on our audited financial statements. We issued wastewater revenue bonds this year and completed a significant Kayenta software upgrade in conjunction with customer service and our information systems group. Information systems received 2025 Utah Information Technology Excellence Award, the 2025 Visionary Digital Inclusion Trailblazer Award, the ArcGIS Open Data Hub they launched. And again, they also supported 66 technology projects. And a very significant project is they launched the redesigned provo.gov website. And then finally, the Justice Court completed 88% of traffic cases within 90 days, 89% of criminal cases within 180 days, and 98% of small claims cases within 270 days. So as you can see, we provide a very diverse set of services, but I think we've done that in an excellent fashion and plan to do that again this year. So I just asked the council if you have any questions or.
Any questions? Counselor, sorry, I couldn't see you.
I just have a couple questions on the servers that you have. I'm just curious, why do we have it on-prem? Is that like required by law?
I'm going to let Josh address that.
So specifically, we're talking about the disk that's on-prem. That we have a lot of services that are actually still here. We are required by law to maintain localized server rooms and materials for our 911 dispatch center. So when we look at the cost of disk in the cloud compared to this disk that we run locally, it's way less cost to the citizens of Provo. So it almost doubles our cost if we were to move it all to the cloud.
What do we have on the cloud?
We have a various set of services, seeing things like Workday's cloud-based services. We have a very hybrid level approach, but each time we look at the actual costs over a 7-year cost outlay, we compare that to say, if it makes sense to move to the cloud, we do so.
Okay.
In this case, it just, it doesn't make sense monetarily.
I have a quick question. So the 410 for new servers, is that a complete replacement or is that one third of this?
So, and this is specifically disk space storage, not necessarily the servers themselves. So if you go back in time, each time we've done like a one-time allocation, then these pieces of hardware do have informed some the mix between spinning disk and non-volatile RAM. They are under support contracts and they end up going to end of life into support approximately at year 7. So when we start reaching that point, we can no longer get emergency repair services. We have to look at an alternative platform. And again, so the cost of an extended support contract in comparison to doing a replacement, which also not just covers the replacement of disc, but we also see an extreme growth curve in how much disc we need. So we try to cover that at around the 6 to 7 year mark. We are now at 7.5 years. So we were able to extend it a little bit, but we are at that spot where we need to replace the disc.
So that's helpful. My question was, what percentage of our of that capacity is being replaced by the 410? Complete replacement or?
Yeah, it's 100%.
100%.
Correct.
Thank you.
And be careful with that. There are some systems that have localized disk on the server themselves. So this is the primary storage platform. Yeah.
Related question I had was on your line item that said, forget the exact wording, it was like website hosting and other digital services. I was just curious what those other digital services were as part of the 124,000.
I can take this as well again if you like.
Yes, please.
So the council was part of this project where we did an RFP for a digital platform, which is the old website was not ADA compliant. It also did not have any online services that would let people interact directly with us. We also had a desire by the council to add a mobile app, which the mobile app is included here. Also, if any of you use ClickFix, which is 311's report and issue type service, that's included in that platform. We went with a product called Civic Plus, which puts it all into that one platform. And so what we did is we had some one-time funding that carried us through for the first portion of it. So we're now at that spot where we need ongoing funding to continue that service. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, and so is 124 an annual, it's like an annual SaaS service?
Yes, and this is a quick version of it. This is 100% cloud.
Okay.
And that would continue.
Correct. It would continue. It's an ongoing.
Thank you. Yes.
All right, any other questions? Thank you so much. All right, next we have the 2027 budget for Public Works. It's be presented by Jay Knight, the Public Works Administration Division Director.
We're not.
He's coming.
Oh.
Thanks for this opportunity. We're going to go through the public works budgets. I have it organized by division of our department. We'll start with water and wastewater, which is our water resources division. The budget's broken down here for each fund. The water fund is $21 million of revenue, broken out by these three sections and the CIP. And the wastewater as well at $28 million with 2 operating sections and the CIP expenditures there. I wanted to note that the water admin and the wastewater reclamation budgets also include debt service payments. So it might not compare with some of the other operating funds where it's not just the cost of the employees and their supplies, it's those additional expenses. So in water resources in FY26, the current year, we had asked for an increase for the new sewer treatment plant coming online and be online for 12 months. And so we're currently going through that now, and it looks like we budgeted sufficiently. We're still learning as we go about seasonality and things like that of the treatment plant. But it looks like we budgeted sufficiently with that request. We're not asking for additional money there in reclamation in 27. In 27, in these 2 divisions or these 2 funds, water fund, we're asking for drinking water plant staff and operating budget. So we have our drinking water plant that is anticipated to be finished in December or January. And so we're requesting 2 positions to be added in July to be there as the plant gets finished, as installers are there putting in the equipment, learning from them to make sure we know how it runs, being prepared for when it comes online, and then 2 others or 3 others in January once the plant comes online.
Jimmy, is
Yes.
this the one on Freedom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's going up very fast. It's getting enclosed and we're excited about its progress. We're just anticipating now in the 27 budget to start staffing it and running the plant. In distribution, we're requesting an increase to the overtime budget based on historical use. You know, that's overtime budget is used on break response and, you know, on call for any calls that we get about the water system on off hours. And the wastewater fund, we're requesting a full-time wastewater collections operator. We feel like with an additional person, we do a better job of maintaining the sewer system, the sewer collection system, the pipes, and the manholes. We would anticipate an additional person being able to focus more on repairs of that equipment or of that infrastructure, and continuing the other work we do to keep the pipes flowing and respond to any backups. And also a similar collections overtime budget request based on historical actuals. As far as fee changes in water resources in the water fund, I've circled here the option 3 that was selected by the council in June of last year, which anticipates a 6% rate increase in FY27 in the current calendar year. We had some questions that we responded to about how that would be applied to the council. It would be done to each component of the rate, resulting in a 6% revenue increase overall. And we had a question also about how those tiers people have responded to those tiers so far, and we don't have a lot of that information yet because the tiers went into effect in September. So we'll learn more about that as we go through the summer months coming up.
Councilor Bondon.
Jimmy, do we have like a hard dollar figure on how much that's gonna raise for each one of the tiers?
Yeah, do we have a picture of the rates?
Like tier 1's gonna be $5, tier 2 is gonna be $10, tier 3 is gonna be $15. Do we have?
I have that, but not in the slides.
Can you send that to us?
I can.
Thank you.
You want to know what the dollar amount of each tier?
We want to
Per
know
1,000
exactly
gallons.
what's
Yeah.
charged.
Okay.
What this
Before and
6%?
after.
Yes, I have that. So in the water fund, there's no other fees that we're anticipating changing. In wastewater, we are looking to add 2 fees related to sewage that gets dropped off at the plant by waste haulers, people who drive the trucks that clean out septic systems typically, and making sure that we're recovering the costs of our employees being there after hours or when there's excessive debris in the sewage. I'm trying to find a different word than sewage, but I'm not gonna. So.
It's okay. We
Hope
love
you can
our
handle it.
stomachs here.
And then here's a list of our water, some of our key accomplishments this year. I'm not going to go through each one, but happy to answer any questions if you've had a chance to see these. Here's the wastewater fund. So our next division is public services, which includes the streets operating budget, which is $3 million operating budget, not revenue generating. Stormwater fund, $6.5 million, which is a stormwater fee on the utility bill that funds 2.8 million in operations and 3.3 of capital projects. Sanitation fund has $7 million of revenue, which primarily goes for the operations. It's not a capital intensive operation. It's mostly just picking up the cans and operating the compost yard, which is a enormous task. I didn't want to downplay that. And then the vehicle maintenance fund, where our fleet technicians and mechanics, they maintain all the city fleet. And then the vehicle replacement fund, which I'll get into a little bit later, where we purchase the vehicles for the city.
Do you know what I saw? I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but something about the vehicles you mentioned that you're just gonna. Was it garbage trucks, just lease them every year and sell them or something? Can you explain how that's more financially sensible?
Yeah, so what the fire truck, well,
Was it
Warren, do you
fire
wanna,
trucks?
no, it's sanitation.
Okay.
Warren, do you wanna,
The fire.
it's probably better to have an expert explain that and the sanitation maintenance costs that we're trying to avoid.
So there is a tremendous amount on the dollar figure for you, but there is a tremendous amount of labor. And cost of parts that go into sanitation trucks to keep them running. They are vehicles that are, we call them torture tested. They are full throttle brake about 1,500 times a day. And they get rattled and just destroyed. They require a great deal of maintenance and repair. By replacing them on a regular basis every 12 months, we are introducing a new vehicle into the fleet that does not have as many cycles on it, and it will not have as many breakdowns. So I know it sounds crazy to say, hey, we're gonna buy a brand new truck every year. But realistically, if you look at the maintenance and repair cost to what it would be to be able to cycle one out, there's quite a bit of difference, and I apologize, I'm not prepared to tell you that exact number. I didn't have that information, I'm sorry.
And so we just sell one vehicle every year too? Is that the idea?
Yes. Yes.
How many of the sanitation trucks do we have in the fleet?
As far as residential garbage cans. I believe off the top of my head, we have 3 vehicles for roll-off containers. We have 2 front loads. And then as far as residential cans, I believe we have 16. But again, I would have to double check that one.
The 16 would do the blue, green, and black bins.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And those are historically the vehicles we've had the most problems with.
Yes, that is correct. I mean, every vehicle has its problems. However, we do spend the vast majority of our labor inside the shop working and keeping these on the road and keeping them.
So you're not technically just using them a year, you're saying every year you're replacing one, which means it's like every 16 years or 20 years.
So what we're doing is you purchase a new vehicle, that vehicle a year later, they'll buy it back. They'll buy it back at 85 to 90% of that value.
Okay.
They're still a very high commodity item, so there's a lot of used market out there, so we can get a lot of it back. So you're only paying that small difference between the new and what you get that buyback at.
And that's less than we pay.
And that cost difference is substantially less than what we pay on an ongoing maintenance, because typically we'll replace a sanitation truck, 1 truck every year or 2 every year through that whole 16. And that becomes, because then we're now running trucks that are 7, 8, 9 old, and those older trucks are just constantly.
So now are we running them all 1 year then?
That's what
Okay.
eventually we're just
We're
doing, we're
towards that.
cycling that out. So eventually we'll have basically new trucks coming in every year, and then we just pay that cost difference between new and then the buyback.
Okay,
Cool garbage trucks. Very cool.
thank you.
My text would say otherwise.
As far as supplemental requests, in streets, we're requesting 2 full-time streets maintenance workers to do some work that is currently being done by contractors that we feel we can do more efficiently in-house. And by having these additional employees, when they're not working on the concrete removal and trench patching, they will be able to be used for the other services that streets provide, such as snow plowing in the winter, allowing us to improve that response. So those would be funded by existing funds that would just be moved to positions instead of paying for the outside work. And stormwater, we're requesting a increase to the part-time budget by $7,000, again, based on historical usage. In the fleet fund, we've talked with fire about the impact to the general fund as well as the fleet fund for an emergency vehicle technician, additional emergency vehicle technician, which we're continuing to work with them and with administration to talk through alternatives and impacts, potential impacts of that. In sanitation, we're asking for a full-time scale house attendant position, which would be a full-time person at the compost yard, which would enable us to have it open 5 days a week instead of 2, and increase the availability of other services such as another recycling drop-off and potentially glass drop-off. And this would be funded by a change to the we refer to as the rooftop fee, which is $1 per account. We're looking to change that to be $1 per residential household. And so right now we have some accounts that are like for an HOA where we have 200 garbage cans. It's only one account. They get charged $1. Where a single family home is also getting charged $1. We want to make sure that that's being distributed appropriately.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Going back to the supplemental request on the compost yard person.
Yes.
So on the bit about recycling, it mentioned the possibility of moving the recycling roll-off from over by the fire station, so we wouldn't have it there anymore. It's much more convenient to get to that in the middle of the city than it is to go down to the transfer yard or something. Can we keep both?
I think we're looking at alternatives for locations.
So far, yes, we're gonna keep it.
Okay, all right.
We're looking at different things for recycling. It's just so challenging because anywhere we set it, the amount of overtime, we just get a lot of illegal dumping. And it becomes a challenge. So we're trying to set them in places that are strategic, that they can have some kind of fire station. We're gonna try it potentially to see if you set it next to a fire station, maybe that will discourage people from.
Do we get illegal dumping with the glass recycling?
Not there because it's,
Okay.
but oftentimes we do, somebody who sits there, I'll throw some tires there, or just set it by there. And it's incredible, like what they do. So
yeah,
if that's the challenge we try to balance. So, but right now we're trying to keep it and then try to expand it, but still resolve that issue.
okay. I will say that the glass recycling is one of my favorite errands to do. Such a great stress reliever to go and like throw the glass.
Right now, that will stay.
Okay.
But if the property sells and it gets redeveloped, then we gotta rethink what we want to do with that. So there may be opportunity to incorporate it with the development. We're starting to look at maybe some standards on there. And incorporating those in our development standards for recycling as part of the development process. Commercial spaces, all that, you need to include a space. We'll probably be coming back to council for those code changes or possibility to look at that too. Still have commercial businesses, they need to put recycling facilities on there.
Okay.
On their property. So
Great, thank you.
I think the last item was the sanitation overtime budget, which we've included in supplemental with the other overtimes based on historical usage. And then here's a description of the fee that I tried to explain that would help us fund the position of the composter.
Just out of curiosity, why didn't we do this 6 years ago? Or last year or year before? I mean, why are we doing it? This seems like such a no-brainer. I'm just wondering.
Good question. Shane, do you have a
I think
response?
over time, when this was first implemented in 2011, it was per account. And so the thought process is we would be capturing all the residential houses. But over time, since that time, every count that was set up, you would think that would be tied to a residential home or residential unit. What we found is it wasn't. So you have all these HOAs, you come in and they have 150 houses, they have one account, which is the HOA account. And so you're only charging one day one. And so over time, that is just like, we've realized what it was intended was for all residential units. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fix that. Instead of an account, it'll be tied to, like, for instance, the UTF, it'll be tied to the power meter.
Yeah.
That way it'll capture all those HOAs, all those that we're missing.
Yeah, well, bravo.
Yeah.
Love it.
Councilor Bogdan.
I know it's just $1. Is it $1 a month? $1
Yes,
a month?
yes.
Okay, but for me, I don't have a green waste can. I don't get mulch from the composting station. So explain to me why someone like me would be charged $1. $30 a year for a service I don't even use.
And it's not just the composting, it's for some of it's recycling, we have all these additional costs that we don't tie to any specific.
But I don't
So-
even have a recycling bin.
I can, it's also helped our spring and fall cleanup. Our spring and fall cleanup has gotten massive, and that is a benefit for the entire community. We ask people to use the spring and fall cleanup. We're not sure how to recapture that. This is one way to do it. That's one of the big ones. We just keep expanding all these. Other one is my hometown. If you know my hometown, to go help, the various communities, and they bring those things in. That has been a very successful implementation of, helping communities. That has just gotten so big, and we have all the costs associated. This is to help with that cost.
Need to clean up, Becky.
Well, I have a vehicle that I can do that, but I mean, I can imagine people coming to me and saying, I don't even have a truck, so I can't even use the spring cleanup. And so now I'm paying for other people to clean up when I can't even clean up. So I'm just trying to figure out, how do I explain this to a resident of why they're paying $30 a year?
So
Is there do-good dudes?
you've been paying this for 6 years because you're not an HOA. So everybody, the only thing we're doing now is bringing it on to people that haven't been paying it. So this won't affect you or any of your neighbors.
Right, this is bringing it to the forefront, right? So
Making them aware of it.
exactly, and so even me, I didn't even realize I was paying $1 a month for composting.
It's on
charge.
you. So anyway,
Yeah, so how do I explain this to
thank you.
people?
But again, not everybody uses every program of the city, but you have the ability to dump all your green waste there for free. You have the ability to use the glass.
Do we allow them to do that for free? I thought it was a
Yeah.
$5 charge to come in and dump green.
No, just to get rid of your green waste.
Green.
So just residents, we don't allow commercial. And so those are some benefits that you have whether you take advantage of them or not. So I don't know how to tell you, I want you to take advantage of it.
What is the expected incremental revenue increase from this change?
So right now, I think we're about a little over 200,000 right now. There's about 19,000 accounts that are just red. And I think once we switch that, we'll jump up to like 36,000 accounts. So kind of multiply that out, it's a little over 200,000.
And that pays for that person.
And that will pay for, the person and all those other facilities and those operations.
The other thing I would mention is that by having the compost yard, it allows us to divert a lot of that waste that would typically just be in the landfill, and be put on the compost yard instead, which I think benefits everyone. So I don't know if that helps, but
Such a good idea.
I've got a quick question about the different overtime
Yes.
requests or budgets. So I really appreciate that you had the actual numbers for the past few years so that we could see how what had been requested was not matching what we were actually spending. That was really, really useful. And it seems like even for like the distribution over time, it was astonishingly high in 25. Like, why was it double anticipated cost?
2025, we had the lead and copper rule where we had to get out and verify water services throughout the community. So we were going on looking at a major percentage of all of our water laterals to find out if they're galvanized for copper or poly. So some of that overtime was for the service inventory. A lot of it was still for breaks. But that number did go over because of the lead copper.
that's why I wanted to show multiple years, so
Yeah.
those aberrations could be discounted and show the overall trend regardless of those one-time.
And on
Operations.
sanitation, like it was already fairly high, 148, and we're asking 200. Does it make sense to have that much in overtime budget, or would it make more sense to hire more people so that you're not doing overtime?
I think eventually it'll get there. Right now, it still makes, we did look at that. It still makes sense to do the overtime. A lot of the overtime is all these extra things that we keep adding on to help with the community. spring cleanups, those kind of things. And right now, it still makes sense just to do that as an overtime than to actually get another person. We are getting another person. A lot of that overtime too is up at our compost yard. Just because we have one individual that takes that. And so the hours that it is open like during the week plus the weekend, you kind of need two people or else that person continues to get additional overtime. This person will actually help somewhat reduce some of that time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Bogdan.
Jeannie, speaking of overtime, do we have the Buckley job figures in yet?
Yes,
Can you send those to us?
yes.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, again, key accomplishments in each of the sections: street, stormwater, sanitation, and fleet. It goes into some of the details about how many cans we collect, how many pieces of equipment we maintain. As far as the fleet replacement, this represents the original proposal of the Fleet Advisory Committee, which includes representatives from each of the general fund departments. These are the general fund vehicles that were initially identified for replacement in the coming year. We're going to continue to meet with them and revise that number, and you'll see the end result of that when we get to when the budget's proposed. But just an example of the types of equipment that the fleet division maintains and works to replace. Engineering, our last division. Oh,
Is 15 the entire fleet of the patrol cars?
no, I think there's
How many are there?
122.
There's 122 patrol units. Yeah. Thought they were shared.
So engineering, again, a general fund division. There are some revenues associated with this division, but I didn't put them on here. $2.5 million operating budget and accomplishments. And then at the bottom, we've got a supplemental request for a full-time engineering technician. We're proposing to use existing funding for one engineer to fund 2 technicians. So we wouldn't need additional budget. We would just need additional full-time equivalent approved in the budget. And that might be my last one. Any other questions?
Councilor Whitlock.
I was luckily not part of the water rate discussion last year. But could you go back to that slide? I just have some questions if I may ask them.
We can play videos.
They got pretty hairy.
I know. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. This is the incremental increase every single year as a schedule.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're going to well over double the cost of water over the next.
Yeah, I have seriously issues with this.
Am I wrong about that? That's right.
That's what
Okay.
it's to say.
Okay.
Yeah, it's to pay for the pipe.
That's why we're so happy.
That's what they say. Do you believe that this increase is needed? It's like a paramount need for infrastructure.
Yes, we have pipe that is corroding underground and leaking, and our crews are out every weekend repairing main lines. And based on the valuation of our water system, we feel like there's a minimum level of funding to keep our water system operating the way it is, providing the greatest water quality in the state.
Do you have the greatest water?
And so that increase is based on keeping that funding level to where we can maintain our system and replace our old infrastructure.
So I guess after this schedule is done, what are our margins become on like the incremental gallon?
I'll have to prepare that and
Okay.
send it to you.
Because it is interesting. I mean, I understand the logic, but it is interesting to like essentially we're dramatically increasing our gross margins on our water to cover a bunch of fixed asset costs. That's essentially the strategy what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of cities have gone to bonding instead.
Yeah, and then I'm just wondering, like, have we done because I think again, this is the economist in me, but like, there's a profit maximizing rate of water that sort of, and again, I know there's conservation, but if you're just, so there's different lenses you can look at this with, but if you're just thinking about it, there's some price elasticity associated with water. As rates go up, I conserve, I use less. And so like, how confident are we we're not going beyond the profit maximizing rate? Like I've done a ton of these studies where you fidget with pricing and then you see volume of consumption change. And sometimes you think more price equals more profit, but actually oftentimes you go past that point at which the marginal cost is high, where you actually bring down your profit because people are just like, this is too expensive. So I'm just wondering, like how confident we are in some of these things.
Yeah, so we do have multiple components of the rate. There's the base rate that is done regardless of the usage. And then when our
and that's just like a flat service rate being connected to the water, correct?
Yes. Yeah. And so our consultant that provided the rate proposal factored in I can't remember the percentage of the elasticity of demand for water with the price as the price went up, and calculated that into the forecast so that as the consumption went down, that we would still reach the certain revenue thresholds we're seeking.
And that was just based on assumptions from other cities or
just industry standard,
like an industry standard assumption. We didn't run any experiments to see how Provo reacts to it.
No, and it's really hard to pinpoint because the consumption changes because of so many reasons besides the price.
But then we will start to get some year-over-year data of the two cohorts before and after, where we can start to see if that assumption was true or not in the modeling.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, prior to this increase, people were using, what was it, like 1 million less in water? And our revenue had gone down because of.
Yes, but again, we've had, some years where it was really dry, some years when it's really wet. It's really hard to pinpoint. It's the price that's changing, the usage, just the overall sentiment about conservation.
I'm sorry, we're getting so in the weeds here, but do we have like any regression modeling that tries to like account for these various factors year over year? Because we could like essentially tag every single variable you just said across the last 30 years and try to come up with, have we ever done any work like that?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay. Anyway, the reason why I ask, it's funny you said that because I was talking to one of my professors from BYU at Econ. He's like, we'd love to do some regression, work for the city. And if you have any project ideas, so maybe this is a good one.
Good citizens have been conserving really well year after year. Just keeps going down.
Yeah, and I expect that this year with our water year, people will probably be inclined to conserve on their own, even without us asking them to, just because we did have a winter. On a slightly different topic, I have a question about the water resources and our staffing levels on that. So that was a really interesting thing to read, that EPA recommended that we should have 14 people and we have 7 full-time and 2 part-time. So we're pretty close, more or less, to what Orem's doing, but we're far below those other 3 cities that are the comparables that were listed. So how is it that we are able to get away with fewer employees right now? And can we sustainably keep doing that? Or is this something where we're borrowing time?
I think we're borrowing time. We do have the best employees out there. They're working hard, but yeah, the system, the wastewater system continues to grow, and we add more miles of pipe, and we have the same staffing levels, or maybe even under what we've had in the past, trying to maintain that increasing pipeline. We've also got new technologies where we can do a lot of the services that we have hired out in the past. And by doing those in-house, we're saving money.
But using more of our employees' time.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just because we've often gotten reports from police that we are not meeting, some sort of industry standard for the number of officers for our population size. So it was really surprising to me to see that we're in a similar situation with water. So.
And specifically on wastewater.
On the wastewater, yeah. Oh, for fun.
Okay, any other questions? I know I would love to see more charts for the water, which I know does not excite anybody. Maybe Jeff. But I would love to see our conservation, the differences. I want to somehow get it. I want to understand better our use per acre. That's something that's still my issue with this whole thing. I think we are so disproportionately, we're not being fair per size of people's land or whatever. But yeah, so I don't even know what to ask for. But I want to understand exactly how it's going up, the pricing, our conservation, how that's been going, and how our conservation's been affecting our revenue. Yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, we have very little data.
Well, we still have it over the last 10 years.
Since the town.
Yeah, but there's years where we increased every year 4%, right?
Right.
I want to compare those years to what we're soon to do with 6 and 8.
And the hard part, like Jimmy was mentioning, those years where we were increasing 4 or 5% every year, it was also in the tail
It's
end
not
of
in the
the
tier.
long tier drought. And there was constant messaging everywhere you look, TV, radio, newspaper of conserve, we have no water. And so it maybe with the help of BYU or some of our consultants, we can look at that and how that plays into what's been happening. But we have seen a decrease in overall water use, whether that's our rates going up or the messaging
I
for
think it's both. I think there's absolutely a mindset of conservation in Provo, without a doubt.
Yeah, there's an ethos change.
Like you knock doors and it's undeniable.
Right.
And it's in every neighborhood. So. Okay. Thanks, Jimmy. Nothing else? Jimmy?
So do you want us to bring something back this presentation, or did you?
Are we gonna just get?
I think we can do it memos and emails.
We want you to know.
Thanks, Gordon. All right.
Can I actually just like
Yep.
one more thing as we're like.
Yes, specify
I,
specifics.
I can write an email, but the other thing that, again, I apologize. I think I was in the heat of the campaign and wasn't following this super closely, but like the other thing that I'm just curious about, I think I understand the logic of the tiers, but I'm curious why we decided to go and tier based on lot size as opposed to just a consumption based tier. That I'd just love to hear like the rationale behind that in more detail, and like your all's thoughts would be really helpful.
We didn't do it based on lot size.
We did by meter size.
We did by meters.
Meter size instead of just pure consumption.
And it is
Yes,
also.
they vary by, yes, we can provide that.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
Is like,
I do.
yes. Okay.
Yes.
It is also
I think
done
we
by
can address that.
Yeah, explain it. Just my understanding was based on the size of the pipe effectively.
There's two
the
different
property,
scales based on consumption,
Yeah.
based on the pay.
not just like the total amount of water used.
Yes,
Well,
it is based
It
on the
is.
total amount of water used.
But it's a
It's
hybrid of
different
both.
for each, for the different.
Can you help me out here?
We can explain it.
Okay, I'll just explain to me. Get me caught up. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. We're still totally running way behind. But no, we are not caught up. We're half an hour behind.
That's all right.
So you have 5 minutes. Pardon?
We felt it.
Our next presentation's at 3.
Supposed to be 2:55.
How it works.
Yeah, we're
You have a very
Size typically has to do with how big your property.
Yeah.
So
It
there's
gives somewhat of a break because someone can be conserving awesomely, but they have bigger
They just have a
land
bigger pipe
garden,
than
gardens,
they-
they have orchards.
no,
whatever.
if you've got a bigger pipe.
Now, presentation regarding the 2027 budget of development services.
Thank you. I really like working with Gordon Hayden Public Works because they always make me look good. Compared to their budget, my budget is small and simple. Hopefully we'll help get you back on track as far as your time. So over the past 5 years, Development Services has eliminated 3 positions to help balance the city's budget. 2 of those positions were at the management level. You'll see in this presentation that we're proposing eliminating another position in order to fund creating a more needed position. There was no mid-year budget adjustment. It came to you, the budget adjustments we're going to ask for the coming year are these things here. Parking enforcement needs 2 license plate readers. One is to update an existing one and one is a new one. Sandy can talk to you in more detail if you'd like, but these LPRs are not what the police talked to you about a couple of weeks ago. They do not access all the private information, personal information that the police department has access to. So that's not really an issue with these LPRs. This 600,000 from development services from RDA is going to repay Public Works for the fill that's been put at the site down on Lakeview Parkway and the I-15. There's been a lien put on that property that would repay this money when the property sells.
Wait,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you explain that again?
This is a $600,000 transfer from RDA funds to Public Works to reimburse Public Works for the trucking costs of moving fill onto the site at Lakeview Parkway and the I-15.
Like the Walmart land?
Yes,
Oh, is this part, okay, is this part of the 1 million that we put towards a grocery store?
this is part of the entire package. There's 1 million of COVID money that's separate from this. This is in addition to that helps buy down the ask from the city on the property. Whoever develops that property in the future, whether it's Walmart or somebody else, they have to lift the property. It's of value to
Right.
them. So they've signed a lien to guarantee the city's
So we
repayment.
are getting that money back.
We're actually getting the value of the fill, which is more like 900,000,
Okay.
and the 900 will go back into the RDA.
Okay, for some reason, I understood that we were doing the million for a grocery store towards that and they didn't have to pay it back. So,
That's the COVID money.
but it's not going towards the fill dirt.
No,
So what's the COVID money doing right now? Is it just sitting there?
yes, that's right. It hasn't been spent. The last one is for the building division. A bottleneck we have in our department in the building division is the plan review. We have one person who does plan reviews, plan checks. The $17,000 is for an AI program to help us with plan review. Okay, I would like to eventually hire another full-time plan reviewer, but this is the first step towards solving that problem in a much more economical way than paying for another employee. Okay. And this may end up solving our problem completely. We'll have to see. This is for a 1-year contract to test this out and see how it works. Honda has already done quite a bit of testing with this, so we have a high level of confidence with it. Also, we feel like we need a new field inspector. The field inspectors have been spread pretty thin and it's not really sustainable. We're kind of sticking our necks out as far as that goes. So I'm going to propose shifting some things around to be able to fund that.
Well, what you're paying for it with an open planner position?
Right.
And you think you're not going to miss that?
That open planner position has been open for quite some time. We haven't filled it. I mean, I've got 2 planner positions. One I just filled. New planner just started yesterday. And planner Nancy Robinson just resigned a week ago. So I'll be filling her spot. But this is the 3rd position that we have had unfilled in the department for a couple years. Okay.
Councilor Bogdan?
Okay, so we keep on rotating through planners. Why?
Because Aaron is so hard to work for.
So if we replace Aaron, then everything's gonna be great?
Yeah, it was actually a surprise, but we lost Nancy. She got offered a better job at BYU where she was before she came here. So that was a surprise to us. But I think, and the planner before that we lost simply because her husband graduated and took a job in Montana. So I don't think it's really a management issue. I think it's just,
Or a pay issue or?
we've worked hard to make our pay compatible and competitive, and HR has been very good at working with us on that.
You just think it's just a
For
fluke?
timing, yeah, yeah. I don't expect it to continue.
Aaron, lighten up.
Now, the state has things in place where we have to do an inspection so many days and that, right?
Yes,
We're still meeting those goals? And that
yes,
hasn't
we're
finished?
still meeting those goals now, but still plan review is a backlog. And so if we can get, rather than taking 21 days to get an industrial plan approved, it would be nice to be able to do that in 14 or 7.
Oh, for sure.
That's what we're talking about.
Like 7.
Yeah. The areas that we're not quite covering costs are the parking permit areas. We're getting better, but we're still not full recovery. And then RDLs are still short because we're not allowed to raise this fee enough to cover inspections. The state law won't allow us to cover inspections in an RDL
But we're
fee.
still working on getting that redone still.
Yes, that's still coming to you. Yeah.
Just quickly, how much would we need to charge on the parking permit fees in order to get full cost recovery? Because we do have a lot of people reaching out that are just appalled that we've gone from $15 to $100 per year. And so if we could reiterate how much the city is still subsidizing it, that might be helpful.
Need to talk in the microphone. Flip it up, turn it on.
Yeah, it's on.
When I calculated University Garden, and if we ever decided to do something on Slate Canyon, it came to about approximately $297 a year per resident, per permit.
Wow.
It's up 15, right?
Excuse me?
That's up from 15.
That's up from 15, and so the 100, we started, like you guys know, with Harbor Belt after that.
Yeah.
And it just seemed to be more cost absorbing.
Councilor Whitlock.
What is the, like the patrol or level of service assumption baked into that?
Depending on the size, the University Garden is so much bigger. We figure about 20 to 25% for University Garden. We have difficulty hitting the entire area in one night, so we kind of alter that a little bit. Slate Canyon, I figured about 2 or 3%. But again, it's still all of that, those costs that we gave. It's very.
What I'm more asking is how often are we patrolling or checking a given house or a given place?
Like I said, on University Garden, we cannot get through the entire permanent area in one single night. So hopefully we're checking our residents once every 3 or 4 times a week, but we're trying to alter it. Because of with the Carterville University Garden, we got the parking management on Slate Canyon, and I'm not trying to be vague, I'm just trying to kind of explain everything, plus all of the other parking management that we do, and the calls that we're taking from Metro Dispatch.
So on average, like once every couple days.
It depends on the area, like
Yeah.
you said, 25%. So during the week, it's getting hit about 25% of the time.
Yeah.
But other areas like Slate Canyon are 2%.
Yeah, or 2%. Slate
Oh, I
Canyon,
some of the
yeah,
percentages,
sorry.
percent of
Yeah,
time of-
and so we will actually go down the road, Slate Canyon multiple times on different calls.
Okay.
But does that answer your question? Or did that give it a little bit of a better answer? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think part of the question is it necessary really to patrol those every single night in order to get compliance? Like, do we need to spend that much employee time in order to fulfill the requirements of the program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it goes back right now, we're sending with the license integrators, it all factors into that. We're down to license integrators. Yes, especially in the University Garden area and Carterville, absolutely.
Good, thank you.
So this is my proposal to pay for the things that we've asked for. Or these would be reoccurring costs, rather. We believe we can pay this out of the increased plan check fee, and we can pay for this out of the trade in the planner position. As we understand very well, the zoning enforcement has been a top priority for the council, and the blitzes have been very successful. But they're certainly increasing caseload. So if we continue with those blitzes on a regular basis, we may be back in another year or so asking for another zoning enforcement person to keep up with the increased caseload that this could cause. Performance measures. the disparity in these numbers are that at this point, we were counting zoning verification applications as planning applications, and they probably shouldn't have. So we stopped counting them here. If you were to throw this back in, you'd probably be looking at another 50 or 75 added to that number. But that's a big reason for the disparity there. Just some of the accomplishments of the departments. One thing I would like to point out in particular are the written warnings that parking gets. I know there's a lot of discussion about parking and the job they do. I feel like Sandy does a really good job balancing giving warnings and educating people on what they can and cannot do with writing citations.
And with the potential revenue, do we take those things to collections or how?
Yes, yep. And we have seen an increase in what we've been able to collect. And so that's helping to fund some of the things we've talked about. Other key accomplishments in planning and in CBG and home.
The increase in the down payment assistance has been huge. That's a big jump in that number.
Yeah, down payment assistance has gone to 60,000. So yeah. And then Melissa, get ready because you're up. Get ready because you're up.
Bill, so you're sure that you don't need any more employees? I feel like it's a miracle you've asked for anything.
Yeah, so I try to be very careful in making sure that everybody's busy 40 hours a week, but not strained. I want to make sure that our resources are all being used fully before I ask for more people because of what a large ongoing expense that is to the city. So I feel like what we're doing right now is manageable, but I need the field inspector and I need help with plan review. If the things I propose solve our problems, will be good. If not, then I'll be back and I'll probably have to ask for more help on the building side, building division.
If that's
the thing we're sacrificing in planning, just so you know, the reduction in planning staff has affected long-range planning. We're not doing the neighborhood plans the way we used to. And we have been sidetracked with stationary plans and some other long-range projects like writing the new zoning ordinance, but we're not getting the neighborhood plans done, the long-range projects. That's what's been sacrificed in losing positions.
But you'll come to us before the next budget season if something is a problem.
Yes. Yeah. As long as Scott lets me.
Okay. My budget stuff's pretty simple. We have increased our the amount of down payment assistance that we've given in the past year, which is really it's really great. We did a few minor changes to the programs that has been beneficial. And we're doing a really good job of marketing the program. See. This is just what we've done so far in 2026, the bottom part, 10 down payment assistance loans just in the first quarter. We've completed I've completed my first project area plan. Yay. Working on policies and procedures and the HTRZ around the front runner station. Is that it? That's it. And do you have any questions regarding RDA or our CDBG and home items? Those are separate from the general fund. I think that's why Bill makes me do it by myself because
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Melissa? No, thanks, Melissa. Thanks. All right, is that it, Bill? Oh, you have helped us a lot. We're back on schedule. We're ahead of schedule.
Wow. Love that.
All right. Yeah, oh, no, I did my math wrong. Thank you. We're 15 minutes improved.
Yes.
We got 15 minutes back. Okay, next a resolution approving the appropriation of $96,547 to pay for 3 new firefighters and their equipment between May and June for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. And Chief Headman, just make sure you explain why this is coming to us now before the budget.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate you giving me a few minutes to talk about why we need to add 3 firefighters. I'll start off with why we're doing this now. There's the plan ongoing starting in fiscal year 27 is to fund them off of our overtime account. So we're going to reduce that by a little over $300,000 to pay for the full-time firefighters for the next year. There's quite a few reasons we'd like to bring them in early. But a big one is that well, let me just go through this. It's not going.
I only have ordinance stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Well, then I'll do it without a presentation. Sorry about that. Hopefully that's the right one. It is. Okay. So, so you didn't get one in your packet either, a presentation. Did you get this? No. Okay. I'll be even more detailed because I thought there was 3 documents submitted. So that's my mistake. So the appropriation is for $60,000 for the 3 salaries for 2 months, and then a $39,000 for equipment, which gets them personal protective equipment as well as radios and some other equipment, uniforms and stuff they need to perform. The fire department, when we staff the fire department, every day we allow 5 people off. So that allows us to keep a minimum level of staffing at every fire station. And as soon as we have a 6th person off for any reason, that requires us to call back an overtime person, which last year happened 330 out of 365 days. So the offset of the savings for overtime easily pays for the position. The reason it's not paying for it why we can't save it in this current budget year is that for the first 2 months of hiring a new employee, they're not on shift. They're in training. So they're not helping us reduce our overtime budget for that 2 months of training. We hire, there's one of the reasons that we wanted to hire now is we are down 2 employees. We have a 3rd one that's about to retire, so we need 3. And then we want to hire the additional 3 so we can run 1 camp in May, get them all trained up, and then they're all on shift starting in July, which helps for a number of reasons. It helps us provide a better training opportunity for the new employees by having more people in training. We're able to function more like a real fire department in training. So when we go to a fire, we don't just go with 1 station, we go with multiple stations. So it allows us to have 2 companies to do training together, and it makes it a whole lot more realistic. One of the other big reasons we would like to hire earlier is we started interviewing for the 3 positions we know about after we did a test in February. And by the time we were making offers to them 2 weeks ago, 2 of them had already taken jobs in other fire departments. So the timing is important to get the best talent in Provo. So we feel like it's to our benefit to hire. We have a great candidate pool that's at least 5 or 6 deep. We haven't interviewed. If we get approved an appropriation for the additional 3, we'll interview 3 more candidates, which is a civil service requirement that we test. We interview 10 for each position. So for the first 3, we interviewed 12, if that makes sense. Let's see. By doing just 1 camp also saves us a lot of overtime costs because when we run a camp, we have some people, we have a training division that does a portion of the training, but we have to bring in experts in their field to train them in EMS, or whether it's some kind of technical rescue or different disciplines in the departments. We bring in the right people to teach them through the training program, in addition to the people that are there every day. Sorry, I was counting on a slide.
Well, I think that's what we wanted to get across, because we talked about this in leadership, but that it is going to save money in the long run, and the department needs it ASAP, and provide training, save money, save overtime. So covering this for 2 months before your budget picks it up.
Yeah, it will help us a lot to get the people in the pipeline, so they're actually benefiting us starting right in July, which is our busiest time of year. We already have firefighters in Nebraska fighting wildland fires. They're going to be out all season long, I expect, as dry as everything is. So,
well, are there any other questions for Chief Hedman about this? Okay, I think we're great.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Well, thank you.
All right, next, a resolution to place 1.92 acre parcel of ground located approximately 1051 East Birch Lane on the surplus property list. This will be presented by Tara Riddle.
Good afternoon. I have a little disclaimer. I love spring in Utah, but it does not love me. So I'm having a little asthma issue. So if I'm a little breathy, it's not because I'm super excited. I've received a couple of comments about this item, so please forgive me for going away from some of the information that I provided to you in your packet. I thought it might be helpful to give you some historical information that was not included because I didn't realize that it would be some of the questions that were coming up. So I think this may be beneficial as we go with the discussion. So I'm going to start way back when, in 1941, BYU acquired some property that's adjacent to the now Kiwanis Park. This will be important as I describe kind of what's happened. So this is the property here where this building is located. It's known as the Oak Ridge School. It sits on BYU property. In 1948 is when Provo City acquired the property that is now known as Kiwanis Park. So 30 years after we acquired the park property, we entered into a lease agreement with the school district for the 2 acres that we're talking about today. That lease agreement was basically a 50-year lease agreement. So it won't be expiring for 2 more years. And the lease agreement was to be used for parking and a playground for the Oak Ridge School. The Oak Ridge School was a school specific for children in the Provo School District and later the Nebo School District, children with disabilities, so special needs children. So the contract that we had was they would pay $1 a year, which they paid in advance. They paid the full $50 up front. So it was supposed to be used for public purposes in connection with the school. So that included both the playground and the parking, and that the school district would pay for all of that equipment and the improvements for the parking lot. So they built everything. Everything that sits there now is what the school district constructed. The deal was once the lease agreement was either broken or it expired, all of those improvements then became the ownership of Provo City. So in 1979, BYU entered into an agreement with the school district for the construction of the school. So the school is owned by the school district, but the property is owned by BYU. So fast forward to 2004, there was an amendment to the agreement with BYU, between BYU and the school district. There were some changes that took place in the state of Utah regarding the education of children with special needs. So it made the Oak Ridge School basically obsolete. And so the school district stopped using the building for that purpose. Provo City was never notified of that change in use. So Wasatch Elementary School and the school district, I don't know how many of the offices and things there in the building were used by each, but it was basically used by the school district for school district purposes. And the playground continued to be used for Wasatch Elementary School. It's important to note that when the school district took over this property, they put up signage on the parking lot that it was for Wasatch employees and also for student drop-off. This was also in contradiction to our agreement, because the agreement was supposed to be that it should have been parking shared between the park and the school. So we fast forward now to 2025. We know that Wasatch Elementary School was purchased by BYU. This also included the building. So the school district quitclaimed all of their ownership over to BYU. So BYU now owns the land and the building. They assumed, excuse me, I'm going to take a drink. BYU assumed the lease agreement. They were not made aware of the terms of the agreement. So they, in good faith, have been using the property as the school district was using it, assuming that they had the same rights, not understanding that if it was no longer being used for the school, that it would revert back to the city. So when they got ownership, that was about the time that they came to the city and said, we are making some adjustments to other buildings on campus, specifically the administration building. We're going to need to move some of our employees down to some of these buildings at the Wasatch Elementary School, also in Oak Ridge School. So that's going to need us to actually use some of the parking, and we like to incorporate that into our overall plan. So we like to purchase the property. So that's where we are today. So inside of the packet, we had information like we typically do. We did a departmental review with all of the city departments, asking what impact would it have if we were to surplus these 2 acres. It's very important to note that if you stand up on this property, you would probably not realize that it's actually owned by the city. We have not had use of it for 50 years. There's not been citizens using the playgrounds because it's secured. Well, then they're going in, it's fenced, it's gated. So if they're going in, they're going in through fences that are closed. Yeah. So, and I'll be addressing kind of the playground issue here in a second. But
yeah,
the parking and things they haven't been using. But if they have, I don't know if they've been getting ticketed or whatever. But so that it really would not have an impact as far as our planning, what the Parks Department have been planning on, the Kiwanis Park future or anything like that. So with the purchase of the Wasatch Elementary School from BYU, there's 3 playgrounds that partially sit, well, the one playground sits entirely on the parcel that was leased by the school district. There's 2 other playgrounds, one right here and one right here. If you look at the property lines, they're built partially on school district, now BYU property, and partially on city property. None of us know exactly why that happened, but the playgrounds have been used by both parties. So about a year ago, the Parks Department went in and did they actually hired an inspection of all 3 playgrounds. And it was determined that all of the equipment in those 3 playgrounds were rated at poor to very poor, meaning that they're not safe for us to be using. So the proposal is that in 2028, 2029, the replacement of those playgrounds would be done as part of their CIP project. And they would be improved down in our current playground area here.
You're fine.
Sorry. I apologize.
CIP, Parks and Rec CIP?
Yes.
And we're talking about even the fenced off one to the north.
No, that was not considered. Well, I'm assuming that would eventually be going away if we sell the property to BYU. So there are 3 separate playgrounds plus our newer playground.
And the 3 separate playgrounds are the ones that are joint on our property
And are in very poor condition that they need to go away.
Okay.
Is that clear?
I've heard they're very.
They are.
So I just wanted.
And our inspection verified that. And I guess if we have questions on that, we have representatives from the Parks Department here. So, what's happened at this point is that BYU, as I've mentioned, has made an offer to purchase the property. So in essence, we could surplus the property and receive about $1.37 million, which could be put into the CIP fund for the Parks Department to go towards the replacement of these playgrounds. And they would be replaced down in the playground area, expanding that playground that we currently have on the park property. I know there was some questions about what BYU's proposed use was. So we have representatives from BYU here if you have questions specific to that. If there's questions specific to the impact this would have on the Parks Department or the playground areas, as I mentioned, we've got representatives here from the Parks Department. Yes.
So Tara, why would Parks and Rec replace playground equipment that sits partially in Kiwanis Park on city property and partially on now?
Because residents are using these playgrounds. Part of it is the smaller playground that we have now is rated for, you'll have to help me on this, to 2 to 5 year olds. We don't really have equipment for the 5 to 12 year olds. So the new equipment that would be coming in would be replacing the stuff that was used by the elementary school, which would be the 5 to 12 year olds.
So you said there's 2 years remaining on the lease?
Well, so theoretically, the lease should be terminated.
Yeah.
Because it's not being used appropriately. So the lease part of this is now out of the picture.
And then going way back to 19, where did Provo City acquire this property? Where the National Parks property?
You know, we acquired it from a gentleman by the name of Willie Rita. Yes, a single gentleman, as it said on the deed. So a single gentleman. So
You tell us.
yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm assuming we purchased it. It may have been donated. I'm really not sure. There wasn't a lot of information on the deed, but we got fee title from it, a single person.
Okay, Councillor Whitlock.
So just clearing up maybe a couple things that I'd heard. So you're saying right now the lease is void. So currently BYU does not have like a right to use the land.
Correct.
Okay. And I'd heard that there was like an option for them to extend the lease, but that's not accurate, correct?
No, there hasn't been any discussion about that.
Okay, there hasn't been, okay.
The original lease, as I said, was written for 50 years.
50 years. And there's no.
With the option of it renewing for another 25, automatically, unless the city gave notice that we did not want to renew.
Got it. So
Yeah.
there was, the original lease, there was that extension.
There was that extension.
But that's no longer in effect because the lease was void.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Bogdan.
Okay, so this is more for John over there. Do we have a need for multiple 5+ playgrounds? I mean, how do we envision this?
It would be consolidated to one 5 to 12-year-old playground.
So would it be large, like a Lakeview North Park playground large?
Yes.
Because you would think we have 3 different ones in there, it's all being utilized, we would have a need for a lot, but just not like a Lakewood Park one, right?
It'll be sized for the needs of the neighborhood. We understand that there was an elementary school at this location and there's no longer an elementary school, so the demand during the daytime hours is probably considerably less for how these were sized. But we'll make sure it's sized appropriately, and it is intended to be a larger 5 to 12-year-old playground for the replacement.
And will the residents be a part of that decision, like where it's located at and
Yes,
how much it is?
we will hold public input for all of that.
And with it being $1 million, would they also get a replacement of the tennis courts?
with the capital improvement plan, yes, the intent is to replace the 3 tennis courts. And again, with public input, decide if there's 3 remaining tennis courts or if there's some pickleball court integration into that or not. We'll continue that as we get closer to.
We probably need to get the
implementation.
tennis people's input on that too,
Yeah.
or that's gonna be a really bad situation for a lot of us. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Whitlock.
Yeah, so just a couple more questions. I would be curious to hear what BYU's planned use of the land would be.
Good question.
Right now, we just use it as overflow parking for the Oak Ridge parking lot. Right now, we have no plans. We don't have any plans for Wasatch or Oak Ridge that we know of. That will come down with.
Even when the ASB is completed.
The ASB when it's completed is, we don't envision keeping the school.
Okay. And what was the methodology to sort of reach the 1.37 million between the 2 appraisal values?
So we typically split the difference, but BYU is actually generous in coming a little bit above what the splitting the difference would be.
Okay.
That's normally what we do if we get 2 appraisals.
And have we talked at all about options of maybe extending the lease under more than $1 a year for like the immediate needs during the ASB construction?
So we have not discussed a lease option, and it wouldn't be, we would create a new lease entirely. So that is something, I don't know if BYU would be open to a lease agreement. That's just not something we had talked about.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that.
Why is it BYU's preference to purchase land as opposed to something like a lease?
It came up as a purchase. We had just talked about it.
Okay.
And I will go back, Wasatch, I don't know what will happen with Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge is in a little nicer condition, so that may stay. But Wasatch is in poor condition.
Councilor Bogdan.
So when you say Wasatch will go away, do you envision just selling the property to some?
At some point, the building will either have to be, I just can't see us remodeling it because it's in such poor condition.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
We really don't know what we're gonna do with it.
So you don't know if you're gonna put a parking lot on it or if you're
We
gonna put a
don't.
parking garage on it?
Yeah.
What's stopping you guys from putting parking garages up on campus?
Parking garages are about underground and then going up there about $46,000 per stall. And then you're about $30,000 per stall for an above ground. And so that's what's stopping us.
30, how many thousand?
It's not, anything below ground is about 46,000 and above ground, you're about 30,000 per stall. And so, and you throw a parking, then it just creates more traffic in that one area.
Well, this is a lot of the feedback that we're getting
Yeah.
is that BYU needs to start staying within their footprint and start building parking garages and building there instead of expanding out. And we've gotten, let me tell you, I went to go exercise at the rec this morning, and by the time I got out, I had 15 emails. And my email, I traveled home yesterday because we went to St. George for a conference last week, and I got home yesterday, was traveling yesterday. My phone was just stinking going off all the time. This isn't just one person's opinion. This is a lot of Provo that is feeling that BYU needs to start staying within its footprint and start building up, getting some parking garages. I'm not doing this to be mean. I'm just doing this to let you know that the distaste for us to sell this is pretty high. They want you guys to stay within your footprint.
Oh, that's fine. We want to be good neighbors with Provo City. We've worked together for years. And so if you guys decide not to sell, we're not here trying to tell you that we want it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for BYU when we got them? Gary Garrett.
Some of the images that we received showed BYU signage on Birch Avenue at the parking lot entrance. Yes. If in fact they were where they looked like they were, and if those have been
removed, I want to commend BYU.
We pulled horns on you.
Removing those in advance.
Thank you.
Until this issue is settled. I think that was up and go.
Good.
And then my other comment is, I kind of feel like this issue is being unfairly framed. And even the slide itself that says Kiwanis Park surplus property. Maybe at one point this was part of Kiwanis Park when the lease agreement was entered into 50 years ago. But at best, I would say the argument the citizens have is please return this property to park use. But everyone's saying don't sell off Kiwanis Park. I don't view this as Kiwanis Park. I view it as parking and playgrounds that were used by the school district. So anyway, I wanted to just clarify that as well.
Now, that's a good point. I think the reason we call it Kiwanis Park is because you've looked at a parcel map. It's on the parcel for Kiwanis Park, but clarifying information probably would have been helpful.
That's it's surplusing Provo City property.
Yeah.
Well, I think, so I used to live there and I played that park for 10 years with my children. It was very much accessible. And I played with my kids there and I parked there. And sometimes when I had to work, I'd watch them while I worked in my car. Like, it's accessible. And I used it a lot. And so a lot of people with little kids would use it.
They view it that way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and there's not a lot of parking at Kiwanis. So when you have a bunch of kids you're carrying around, it's really hard to find a place to park that you're not running across the street, which is dangerous. So like that's a coveted parking area when you are playing with your bunch of kids. I'm definitely not open to selling any of Provo's park land, and I consider this parkland. I don't care if it becomes a rose garden or parking lots or more playground. It's very valuable space and I definitely want to keep it. This is what all we're doing is growing more dense. We're just more and more people. The last thing we want to do is lessen our park space. And I'm very perplexed by the price because lots are selling in the city for a half acre at $1 million. So this price seems ridiculous to me. And I had multiple people reach out to me on that account saying this
It
price
probably has a lot to do with the zoning.
this price is really cheap. And I've heard from over 75 people through email, text, phone calls. And not one person supports the idea of this. And I'm not surprised by that. I think there is still a lot of hard feelings about Wasatch because I heard about that a lot from people too.
Yeah.
I don't know when Provo will ever get over that land swap. So it's still painful. But lots of comments about the parking garages. People want parking garages and they think it's very overdue and they're frustrated seeing the music building being built without a parking garage. And now the ASB being built without a parking garage. And I don't know if that's true. That's what they told me. But that there should be parking garages on the bottom. There should be parking garages on the land that they own. And that the park is also very strong consensus that parking is very much needed. I heard from a lot of BOE employees saying parking's a nightmare. And we as employees have been dealing with this forever. A bunch of retired people even said it's always been a problem the whole time before I retired. So parking is a problem. They acknowledge that, but this isn't the solution. Councilor Christensen?
Yeah, the issues around the playgrounds come and go. Prime land like this does not. This will not come back. I can see why BYU would want to land bank this. It's a very prudent thing to ask for. I appreciate that BYU is not being heavy-handed about this. And it's also prudent that Provo land bank. So whether this is set up as a park, has been seen on that in a different list. This is land that will not come back to us. And I would be a hard pass on this.
Councilor Whitlock.
One thing I also heard a lot from constituents that I was curious if someone from Parks and Rec could speak to is that Kiwanis is one of the most heavily trafficked parks in the city. Do you have any data or research to suggest kind of like relative use of Kiwanis to other parks?
I would say that Kiwanis is one of the heavier used parks, especially around the July 4th holiday or viewing fireworks. But after the holiday impacts, it is probably one of the more, I would say it falls within regular use of capacity for the park. It's a larger park, so people can spread out well on there. I would have to get back to you on numbers, but I could provide those.
Councilor Whipple.
Yeah, I would be open to some sort of an agreement where BYU is able to use the existing parking lots that are there. I wouldn't want any landscaping change or anything like that because a lot of the need for that parking space by the community would be weekends or other times that it wouldn't be necessary for the BYU employees. I think that would be a good faith solution. That's a very temporary one, just while the ASB is being constructed and that overflow parking is needed. I think we do need to work with BYU since we are sharing a property line and we have assets that are crossing over that line for those parks or the playgrounds to get that figured out. And they've been pretty good at working with us on things like that. I am completely opposed to selling the property. I can remember going to both of these playgrounds when I was an undergrad and just assuming that the reason that there were fences there was for restriction during the school day, but that those were community assets the rest of the time. And I believe that's how most people in the community treat it, even if parks hadn't been recognizing that officially. And I mean, this is where I got engaged. So I've got like strong emotional ties to this park, even though I don't live next to it.
And I would also say I wouldn't have any trouble either coming up the short-term lease to accommodate, construction for the next few years. I don't have a problem with that at all.
I heard that a lot from constituents that they would be open in the spirit of being good neighbors with something like that, as long as it was, like you said, not altered. The property was not altered, just using the existing playground, and it was beneficial to the city, whether it's the cost of the lease or potentially some kind of contribution towards getting it back towards more park space.
Councilor Bogdan.
John, why have a captive? The one thing that I did hear is that people really did like the playground that was fenced off. It is a great asset for young children so that they can just not worry about them running around and getting places where they shouldn't be. Runners are always a thing under 5, aren't they? But that was really valued. I did never hear that they wanted that to go away. I don't know what the condition of that playground equipment is, and I don't know that we know. But I have heard that residents are making their own repairs to some of our equipment. So the sooner that we can get some of that equipment redone, I think would be in our best interest. But I just wanted to point that out. I don't know that they're up for tearing down the fencing, just leaving.
Maybe re-signing the fencing so that it's clear that it's okay to use it. But yeah, keeping those shorties contained, super useful. Also, I kind of like the old school swings and stuff like that. Those are probably not up to any kind of standard, but they are great.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, is that all you need from us?
Yes. I think so. Yeah.
Thank you to BYU for coming.
No, the surplusing won't, because it doesn't sound like there would be support to move it. So I'll talk to BYU about the possibility of a lease to see if that would work.
Okay.
Thank
you, Tara.
Yeah.
And thank you, BYU, for coming.
Yeah, thank you for answering our questions.
I did love to know
Like to go.
I got our emails. We just have this. We have to pivot.
All right, Brian, if you can please speak to our closed meeting.
Yes, we do have an additional topic which deals with potential acquisition of property, which is one of the purposes for strategy session regarding acquisition of property, which is a purpose for a closed meeting of the statute, so it'd be appropriate to move to closed meeting this time.
Great. We have a motion for a closed meeting.
In that case, I'll move that we close this meeting.
Awesome.
So second that.
Wonderful. We will close the meeting.
Do we need to do a vote?
Yes, let's do a vote. All right, a vote on doing a closed meeting. Counselor Whipple.
Yes.
Counselor Bogdan. Yes. Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Christensen.
Yes.
Counselor Whitlock.
Yes.
Counselor Garrett.
Yes.
And that passes 7-0.
6-0.
So.
6-0.